I woke up early and headed into the mountains while the air was still fresh and the birds were singing. I picked up some ripe hawthorn fruits from the ground, tossed a few into my basket, and stored the rest in my spatial storage. See, a few days ago I transmigrated into this body in the Great Autumn Kingdom and discovered I had this special space. It can hold things, and I can even hide inside it for about half an hour. That saved me from wild boars more than once, because these mountains are dangerous. People in the village say there are even tigers up here, so nobody else dares to come. As I walked, I gathered wild vegetables, mushrooms, wild onions, ginger, and garlic, keeping only a couple handfuls of greens and some hawthorn in the basket while storing everything else. I made my way to a huge field of chili peppers, all bright red and ready for harvest. People here don't eat chilies, they only grow them as ornamental plants. They're loss. I've been picking and drying them for days now, and about 2/3 of the field is already in my space. 4 or 5 more days and I'll have it all. When the sun came up, I stopped picking and set up a pit trap with sharpened bamboo stakes, covered it with branches and grass, hoping to catch a wild chicken or a rabbit. Then I headed down the mountain, gathering firewood along the way until my basket was full. I got back to the Lin family courtyard before anyone else's chimney had even started smoking. Grandma Lin was standing outside the kitchen looking sour as usual, but her face softened a little when I pulled out the hawthorn and greens. She tossed the vegetables to first Aunt Chen and told her to boil 1 egg each for second son's kids. That's us, me and my siblings. The reason I bring her wild fruits and greens every day is simple. It's the only way my brothers and sister get to eat eggs. But today she gave us each a whole egg, which never happens. I knew right away what it meant. They're going to split the family. I washed my hands and saw my brothers coming from the backyard after feeding the chickens and cleaning the coop. Lin Bai is 12, Lin Song is 7, and little Lin Tong is only 4. They all called out, "Second sister," and Tong came running with his arms open for me to pick him up. I held him and washed his dusty little face. There are 5 of us siblings, our eldest sister Lin Ji, who Grandma already married off, then me at 15, and my 3 brothers. Our parents, Lin Changhe and his wife, died 2 years ago in an accident while working at the Zhao family estate in town. The Zhao family's steward brought 10 taels of silver to settle it quietly, and Grandpa and Grandma just pressed their thumbprints without even asking how our parents died. Then last year, they sold our eldest sister to an old widower in the next village for 8 taels of silver. She agreed to marry him thinking if the old couple got the money, they'd treat us younger ones better. She was wrong. She jumped into a fire pit herself, and it didn't help us at all. At breakfast, first uncle's family has 2 sons, Lin Nan, 18, apprenticing in town, and Lin Feng, 10, studying at the village school. Grandpa has big hopes for Lin Feng, so he gets an egg every day and thicker porridge than anyone else. And then there's Auntie Lin Tsilian, 21, and still unmarried. She's Grandpa and Grandma's late-born daughter, sickly and spoiled rotten. She never lifts a finger, and Grandma carries meals to her room personally. After delivering the food to Annie's room, Grandma came back to the table and started handing out eggs. Lin Song stared at his, a whole egg sitting right in front of him. He couldn't believe it. Since our parents died, we never got eggs until I started going to the mountains a few days ago. Lin Bai watched Grandma with sharp eyes. He's protective of me, always worried they'll try to sell me off like they did our eldest sister. And honestly, that was Grandma's original plan. Wait until I turn 16 next year, then marry me off for a good price, and after that, kick the boys out. They certainly weren't going to spend money on wives for them. But Grandpa talked her out of it. The villagers already gossip about them selling Lin Ji to that old widower. Doing the same to me would be too much. It could hurt Lin Feng's future reputation as a scholar official. So Grandma decided not to wait. Better to split the family now and stop feeding extra mouths as soon as possible. Lin Bai, what are you staring at me with those ox eyes for? She snapped. If you don't want to eat, get off the bench. Don't sit here ruining my mood. Lin Bai has never been close to Grandma. Since he can remember, she never once called any of us her grandchildren with any warmth, and she barely ever smiled at us. Sometimes he even wonders if our father was really her biological son. I peeled my egg and put it in Lin Bai's bowl, telling him to eat. Lin Song followed my lead. He peeled one for little Lin Tong first, then ate his own. Grandma glared at us, clearly pained to see those eggs going into our mouths. Then she spoke up. Eldest son and Lin Mian, our family's been getting worse year after year. Us two old ones don't want to drag you all down with Silian. Let's split the family. The moment Lin Bai heard split the family, the weight lifted off his chest. They weren't selling me off. Then he actually got excited. No more living under Grandpa and Grandma's sour faces. No more getting yelled at. I felt relieved too. The day I transmigrated here, I overheard the old couple talking about splitting the family. I'd been forcing myself to act patient for days, and honestly, I was running out of the ability to pretend. I pinched my own leg hard to keep my mouth from curling up, and squeezed out some tears instead. Grandma, if we siblings get separated out, how will we even survive? I glanced at first Uncle and first Aunt Chen as I said it. Their faces didn't change at all. They never talk much. Whatever Grandma says goes. Clearly, they'd already discussed this beforehand. Grandma looked at my pitiful act and got angry. Put away that worthless look. If outsiders saw you, they'd think you suffered some terrible injustice in this house. I wiped my tears and lowered my head as far as it would go. That only made her more disgusted. You think I'd cheat you kids on the split, she snapped, then elbowed Grandpa. Old man, you say it. Grandpa knocked his pipe and sat up straight. We have 12 mu of land total. By rights, each branch gets 6. But Silian isn't married yet and needs medicine all year, so I'm counting her share too. Each branch gets 4 mu. When she marries later, her land goes back to you two families. Now, Mian girl, I've thought about it for you siblings. Normally, after splitting, you'd still owe us holiday gifts and respect. But here's my idea. You take 1 less mu of land, and that counts as your filial duty to us. Just come bow your heads on holidays, that's enough. We old ones can't farm anymore, so first son's family will work our land for now and cover our expenses, Silian's too, including her medicine. The main house is 2 rooms, Grandma and I keep those with Silian. The 2 side rooms, one for first son's family, with Lin Feng. Your siblings' room gets cleared out for Lin Nan's wedding at year's end. You 4 move to Great Uncle's old house at the village edge. I'll have your first uncle get some villagers to patch the roof. It'll be livable. After taxes, there's barely any grain left. Your grandma will give you your share. I sneered inside. So, basically, they were just kicking us out. Grandpa took a slow drag on his pipe and continued. The 10 taels from the Zhao estate and the 8 taels from Lin Ji's marriage have mostly been spent over the years. We can only give you siblings 10 copper coins. He looked at Grandma. She pulled out 10 coins and slapped them on the table. The money was gone all right, but not a single coin had ever been spent on any of us. I didn't argue. Arguing wouldn't squeeze silver out of them. As long as we split off, I'm confident I can build a better life for us. I looked at these people, my body's own blood grandparents, and the disgust in their eyes was completely undisguised. They couldn't wait to throw us out. Grandpa, Grandma, can we still come visit after this? That question reminded Grandma of something. She immediately had Lin Feng fetch paper and inked to write up a formal separation contract. The gist, from now on we live our own lives. Rich or poor, starving or dead, weddings or funerals, each family handles their own. Nobody leans on anybody. That was exactly what I wanted. A clean break. Lin Feng wrote 2 copies. Grandpa pressed his thumbprint first, then handed it to me. I looked it over carefully. Lin Feng snorted through his nose, full of mockery. I didn't care. I finished reading, pressed my thumbprint, and kept my copy. Grandma handed over the house deed easily enough, but when it came to the land deed, she grumbled and muttered for a while. By the time breakfast was over, the Lin family was officially split. Here's what we walked away with: 3 mu of land, half a sack of rough rice, half a sack of coarse flour, 1 hoe, some basic seasonings, 1 old pot, 1 chipped knife, a few clay jars, some bowls and chopsticks, whatever was in our room, 2 old hens that don't lay eggs anymore, and 10 copper coins. After the split, Grandma immediately sent first uncle to round up villagers to fix the house. She couldn't stand looking at us siblings for another second. While the house was being repaired over the next 2 days, We'd still stay in our side room, and the two families would take turns using the kitchen. Our entire fortune after the split, 10 copper coins. Little Lin Tong squatted on the ground watching the two old hens trapped under the basket, copying their clucking sounds. I was staring at the chickens too, lost in thought, when Lin Song stomped over and crouched beside me, all puffed up with anger. Second sister, Grandma is so stingy. She gave us two hens that don't even lay eggs. He and Lin Bai cleaned the coop every day, so he knew exactly which hens had stopped producing. I rubbed his head. Honestly, getting any chickens at all was more than I expected. It's fine. We'll turn them into eggs. His eyes lit up. Really? Really? I'd been thinking about stewing one of them so we could all have a good meal. But then I figured one chicken would only last 2 days. Better to sell them and buy eggs that would last much longer. I was about to ask Lin Bai to take the chickens next door to the Sun family. Their daughter-in-law just had a baby, so they might want old hens for soup. But when I turned around, Lin Bai's face was full of worry. He's always been a heavy thinker. He knew our rations wouldn't last long, and with no way to earn money, what happens when the food runs out? That contract Grandma wrote was specifically to keep us from coming back to Mooch. As the eldest son of our branch, he'd already made up his mind. Second sister, I want to go to town and find work. From the original body's memories and these past few days together, I know Lin Bai is a steady, responsible kid. Last year, he tried to stop them from marrying off our eldest sister to that old widower and got slapped twice across the face by Grandma for it. The original owner of this body, on the other hand, was timid, too scared to even breathe loudly, letting everyone push her around. I walked over and patted his bony shoulder. What kind of work could you find? Setting aside that you're too young, look at you, your skin and bones. What employer would dare hire you? All of us siblings worked hard and ate little at the Lin house. Lin Bai is 12 but shorter than 10-year-old Lin Feng. Don't worry. As long as we siblings stick together, we'll be fine. Even if we go hungry sometimes, at least we won't have to live watching someone else's mood, won't have to be scared all the time. We can live in peace. Lin Bai's tight brow relaxed a little. He looked up at me, and I could tell something was clicking in his head, that I seemed different from before. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but the old me would never have said things like that. The old me used to ask him what to do when problems came up. Then I'll go find work once I've grown taller, he said. Lin Song had been listening the whole time. He jumped up high. When I grow tall, I'll go with you. Lin Bai and I both laughed, and Lin Tong laughed along without knowing why. Take these 2 chickens to Annie Sun's house and ask if she wants them. If she does, sell both for 50 copper coins. Normally a small chicken goes for 30 coins, a big one for 35. Our hens were old but big, so 50 for the pair was fair. Lin Bai and Lin Song each grabbed a chicken and headed out, Lin Tong toddling behind. At the door, Lin Song suddenly grinned and turned back. Second sister, now that we've split from the family, does that mean we don't have to clean the chicken coop anymore? I nodded. We've split. It's not our problem anymore. He laughed and ran out. The 3 of them barely made it through the gate before Grandma's voice rang out. Where are you taking those chickens?
Hey.
Lin Bai, I'm talking to you. Lin Song. Not one of them acknowledged her. Grandma slammed the door so hard the walls shook. I covered my mouth and laughed inside our room. Soon the boys came back empty-handed. Auntie Sun heard 50 coins and didn't even try to bargain. She took them on the spot. I used 20 of those coins to buy 20 eggs from around the village. At noon I made a thick dumpling soup with coarse flour, cracked 4 eggs into it, and tossed in some wild greens. The 4 of us ate until we were completely full. Lin Tong was hiccuping and licking his bowl spotless, which made us all crack up. Grandma saw the eggshells on the ground and heard us laughing from our room. She was grinding her teeth with rage. She turned on first Aunt Chen in the kitchen. How many bowls of rice did you put in the noon porridge? Don't you know how poor we are? Keep wasting like that, and I'll have your husband divorce you. Then she kicked the eggshells and stormed off to the east room, cursing the whole way. After the meal, I went to wash dishes in the kitchen. I greeted first Aunt Chen, but she didn't even look up. I let it go. I called my brothers to grab their baskets and follow me up the mountain. With Lin Bai helping, we could harvest the chilies faster. Lin Bai didn't want Lin Song and Lin Tong to come. Too dangerous. I told them not to worry, that I had a way to keep us safe if anything happened. Lin Bai was still uneasy, but he trusts me. We passed by the little courtyard at the village edge, our new home. We could hear hammering inside where the villagers were fixing it up. Our parents used to mention great-granduncle, who had no children and left this place to Grandpa before he died. Grandpa and Grandma never once brought it up. If they hadn't given it to us in the split, the whole family probably would have forgotten it existed. But I don't care about any of that. We have our own home now. Up on the mountain, I led everyone toward the chili field. Lin Bai and Lin Song didn't need to be told. They dug up every edible wild plant they spotted along the way. Then we reached that sea of red. Second sister, what is this? It's so pretty. Lin Song had never been up the mountain before. Pretty, Lin Tong clapped his hands. They're not just pretty. They can make us money, and we won't have to worry about going hungry. Lin Bai had seen chilies before, but never heard they were worth anything. You know what these are, second sister? I nodded. I didn't before, but after my illness cleared up a few days ago, I got some extra memories. In those memories, this is called chili pepper. You can eat it, cook with it, make it into seasoning, all sorts of things. I pointed to the strings of peppers I'd hung up to dry in the trees. That's one of the methods from the memories. Once we move into our house, I'll give it a try. Lin Bai and Lin Song just stared, wide-eyed. They couldn't believe something like this could happen, but if I said it, they believed it. Then I reached into my space and pulled out a hawthorn fruit, wiped it off, and gave it to Lin Tong. When Lin Bai and Lin Song saw me produce a fruit out of thin air, they both jumped back 2 steps in shock. I wanted to laugh, but held it in so I wouldn't scare them more. I explained about the space, same excuse as before. After the illness, it just appeared. I needed them to know because I planned to store the chilies in the space. I couldn't let anyone else find out about them, which meant I couldn't hide the space from my own brothers either. It took the 2 of them a while to accept it. I made them swear to keep the secret. Little Lin Tong seemed to understand too, nodding his head over and over. I gave hawthorn fruits to Lin Bai and Lin Song, then showed them the pit trap, so they wouldn't step in it. After that, Lin Song took Lin Tong to gather firewood and play, while Lin Bai and I got to picking. I'd originally thought about making chili paste to sell, but if someone recognized the peppers in it, the business wouldn't last. Better to dry the chilies and fry them into chili oil instead. The oil is red, sure, but it's just oil. No one would ever trace it back to the peppers. I tied a cloth over Lin Bai's face the same way I did mine and told him not to touch his eyes before washing his hands. With 2 of us picking, the work went much faster. We'd barely started when Lin Song shouted for me. Lin Bai and I rushed over and found him and Lin Tong crouching by the pit trap. The grass cover had fallen in, and there on the sharpened bamboo stakes was a rabbit, skewered right through the belly. Second sister, you're amazing. We can sell this for money. Money, Lin Tong echoed, the way he always repeats the last word anyone says. Lin Bai pulled the rabbit out and handed it to me. He'd already accepted the space. He knew where it was going without me saying a word. Tomorrow let's bring the hoe and dig more traps, he said. I agreed. Before, I couldn't bring tools without Grandma getting suspicious. Now that we've split, the hoe is ours. We reset the trap and got back to picking until the sun started going down. With Lin Bai's help, just 2 more days and the whole field would be done. On the way down we gathered firewood as usual, extra now, since it was for our own home. Little Lin Tong watched his brothers carrying their baskets, then tugged my hand and pointed at theirs. I smiled. You want your own basket too? He nodded hard. Lin Bai heard and started collecting thin branches to weave one. By the time we got back to the Lin house, it was getting dark. I made dumpling soup again with eggs and wild greens. Just as I called Lin Bai to come carry the bowls, Grandma showed up in the kitchen. Where are the fruits you picked on the mountain this afternoon? Go get them for me. I finished ladling the last bowl, stood up, and smiled right at her. Grandma, did you forget? We split the family this morning. She hadn't expected me to talk back. She'd come to take what she wanted because she knew the old me was weak and easy to push around. She figured the split wouldn't change that. How dare you speak to your grandmother like that? Lin Bai walked in just then. Hearing her tone, He stepped in front of me to shield me. Grandma raised her hand to slap him across the face. I grabbed her arm mid-swing and stared her down with a look that could cut. Grandma, you had Lin Feng write that contract just this morning and you've already forgotten? If you can't remember, go back to your room and have him read it to you. She froze. She couldn't believe this was the same Lin Mian who never fought back, never talked back. In that moment, I could see the regret twisting inside her. She wished she'd sold me off like our eldest sister before splitting the family, so I'd never have the chance to stand up. She cursed us under her breath, hoping we'd starve to death soon. Night fell. In our side room, by the dim oil lamp, Lin Bai was weaving a tiny basket for Lin Tong, sized just right for him. I played with the two little ones, and the room filled with laughter. Lin Bai smiled as he worked. It had been so long since any of us were this happy. Then loud banging on the main gate. First uncle was back. The house was ready, he said. Grandma heard and immediately threw our door open, face dark as storm clouds. Pack your things. Get out. Now. She slammed the door and left. Lin Bai finished the little basket and looked at me. Second sister, what do? We move. There wasn't much to pack. Each of us had one set of worn bedding and one old padded jacket. The clothes on our backs, nothing to change into. Lin Bai tied everything with rope and loaded it into the baskets. We didn't forget the firewood either. We walked out bent under the weight. Even little Lin Tong's new basket was stuffed full. At the doorway stood Grandpa, Grandma, first uncle, and his whole family, our own blood relatives, watching us leave like they couldn't get rid of us fast enough. I knew that someday they'd regret this. The moment we stepped through the gate, it slammed shut behind us. None of us looked back. Nobody missed that suffocating house. We headed straight for the village edge. Great-granduncle's place had been empty for over 30 years with nobody maintaining it. One day of repairs couldn't fix much. The gate creaked as we pushed it open. We went straight for the main room. A wave of cold hit us the moment we opened the door. It was nearly November. Without a heated bed, we'd be shivering all night. Lin Bai lit the oil lamp. The main room had a table and two benches, and through a doorway on the right was a bedroom with a large heated brick bed, twice the size of what we had at the Lin house. Lin Bai, start the fire under the bed. I'll clean the surface. I found a rag and started wiping. No water, so I just wiped dry. The dust was so thick it made me sneeze nonstop. Lin Song and Lin Tong unloaded the baskets item by item. When something was too heavy, they tried to carry it together. Lin Tong couldn't hold his end and plopped down on the ground, but instead of crying, he just giggled. Getting the bed truly clean was impossible tonight. That would have to wait until tomorrow, when Lin Bai hauled water from the river. Lin Bai stuffed firewood into the stove and lit it. Smoke immediately started pouring out of the bed on the other end. The heating channels were too old and clogged. The bed wouldn't warm up tonight. We opened the door to let the smoke out, which made the room even colder. Nothing to do but double up, two per blanket, huddled together for warmth. I held Lin Tong. Lin Bai held Lin Song. Just as our bodies started to warm a little, cold air blew down from above. I looked up. The window paper was full of holes. I sighed quietly. Just go to sleep. Once you're asleep, you won't feel the cold. At first light, all four of us were awake. The brick bed was as hard and cold as sleeping on bare ground. Lin Bai grabbed a jar and went to the river for water, then started tearing apart the old bed channels to rebuild them. We had to get this bed working tonight, or we'd all get sick. Lin Song and Lin Tong helped him while I went to the kitchen. The yard was small, but there was a room on each side, kitchen on the left, an empty side room on the right with not even a bed inside. The kitchen stove had no pot, so I set our old one on top. Perfect fit. I boiled water first, scrubbed the kitchen clean, then started cooking. Rough rice porridge and 2 handfuls of wild greens for my space blanched and stir-fried with plenty of garlic. My space was filling up nicely. Wild greens, wild chives, mushrooms, hawthorn fruits, all piled high. Time stands still in there, so nothing spoils. When winter comes, I can sell it all at the town market for good money. A sudden crash from next door startled me. Turned out to be the neighbor, Mrs. Zhang, yelling at her son for something. I went back to plating the food, and then someone knocked on our gate. I opened the gate, and there stood third Grandpa, the last person I expected. His name is Lin Zhong, Grandpa's youngest brother. Even though they live in the same village, they cut ties years ago for reasons nobody talks about. Grandpa is the eldest of 3 brothers. Great-granduncle, the second, died over 30 years ago. And third Grandpa is the youngest. Behind him stood his 2 sons, Lin Changming and Lin Chongquan. By family ranking, I call them third uncle and fourth uncle. Third Grandpa, third uncle, fourth uncle. They smiled and nodded. Little Mian, this house hasn't been lived in for years. Can the heated bed even work? Third Grandpa asked. Let your uncles take a look. I stood there stunned for a moment. My own first uncle spent an entire day here yesterday with a repair crew and never once checked if the bed worked. But this man, related to us through a broken family bond, thought of us right away. Thank you for thinking of us, third Grandpa. We really did sleep on a freezing cold bed last night. We were up at dawn, Lin Bai, and the little ones are inside right now trying to tear it apart and fix it. Third uncle and fourth uncle went inside. When they opened the door, dust was everywhere. Lin Song and Lin Tong stood in the doorway, covered head to toe in black soot. Third uncle frowned, his heart aching for them. Fourth uncle burst out laughing. Third uncle shot him a look. You don't act like an uncle at all. I couldn't blame fourth uncle. I wanted to laugh too. The 2 little ones stood there blinking through their sooty faces, looking from one person to the next without understanding what was funny. Come here, come to third Grandpa, Lin Zhong called. Lin Song knew who he was, but Lin Tong didn't. Lin Song led him over and called out, third Grandpa, and Lin Tong copied him. I brought a basin of water, and third Grandpa washed both their faces himself. Little Mian, if you ever need anything, you come find third Grandpa. Don't be shy about it. Word about our family split had spread through the village yesterday when first uncle was rounding up helpers. Third Grandpa knew exactly what kind of people his older brother and sister-in-law were. When they sold our eldest sister to that old widower, he nearly went to confront them. His sons had to hold him back. Now that we'd been pushed out, he wasn't going to just stand by. With third uncle and fourth uncle helping, the heated bed was rebuilt in half a day. It drew beautifully and warmed up fast. Once the work was done, third Grandpa took his sons home. I thought about giving him some mushrooms and wild chives for my space, but decided against it. There would be time to repay his kindness later. The bed was fixed, so tonight we wouldn't freeze. The only problem was no straw padding, just our thin quilts on hard brick. I'd need to grab some rice straw from the fields on our way back from the mountain. We hadn't eaten our morning porridge yet because of third Grandpa's visit, so I reheated it. After eating, we grabbed our baskets and headed up the mountain. The most important thing right now was finishing the chili harvest and getting everything dried before the cold set in. The batches hanging in the trees were already dry, so I stored those and hung fresh ones in their place. Lin Bai brought the hoe and our one knife. After we finished picking, he dug 5 or 6 new pit traps. I told him to make some of them deep and wide. With luck, we might even catch a wild boar. He cut bamboo, sharpened the stakes, and set them in the pits. On the way down, we gathered firewood as always. At the fields, we tied up several bundles of rice straw to carry home. Back at the house, everyone got to work. Lin Song helped me tend the stove fire. Lin Bai wove straw into mats for the bed. Lin Tong helped Lin Bai, which mostly meant getting in the way. Before going to the mountain, I'd set some dough to rise. By the time we got home, it was ready. I washed our one knife several times, cut the dough into pieces, and steamed them. Lin Song couldn't remember the last time he'd had steamed buns. Maybe not since our parents died. It wasn't that the Lin family didn't eat buns, they just never gave any to us. As the steam rose, the kitchen filled with the smell of wheat. Lin Song was practically drooling. Second sister, it smells so good. Right on cue, Lin Tong appeared in the doorway. Sister, smells good. It was funny and heartbreaking at the same time. From now on, second sister will make sure you eat buns every day. And meat buns too. Lin Song and Lin Tong grinned so wide their eyes disappeared. If I said it, they believed it. When the buns came out, I took some mushrooms from my space, cracked 2 eggs, and made mushroom egg soup. The smell had Lin's song and Lin Tong drooling again. Even steady Lin Bai couldn't help saying over and over how good it was. He's mature for his age, but he's still just a kid. It was the best meal I'd had since coming to this world. After eating, there was still work to do. Lin Bai and Lin Song hauled water from the river. I scrubbed the table, benches, bed surface, and the storage cabinet on the bed, then laid down the straw mats and bedding. Lin Bai picked through the firewood and tied together a big broom. We sprinkled water and swept the main room, the side room, inside and out, until everything was spotless. When we finally sat on the warm bed, it hit me. We really had our own home. I had the kids take off their padded jackets and sleep in their underclothes. Then I took the oil lamp to the kitchen, heated water, stripped off my own jacket, and washed all our clothes. There wasn't much water, so they didn't get perfectly clean, but it was better than nothing. I hung them on the firewood pile in the yard and shivered my way back to the bedroom. Sliding into the warm blankets after last night's misery felt like heaven. Cold air still leaked through the holes in the window paper, but we couldn't afford new paper yet. Tomorrow, I'd just have us sleep the other direction. I fell asleep before I could think of anything else. The day had been too exhausting. Next morning, Lin Bai fetched water first thing. I reheated yesterday's leftover buns and made wild vegetable soup. We just finished getting ready to head for the mountain when someone knocked on the gate again.
It was third grandpa.
He didn't come inside, just handed me a small sack of grain. About 5 or 6 jin by the weight of it. I knew his family wasn't doing well either. Earlier this year, he'd sold half his land to pay for his wife's medical treatment, and she still passed away. After taxes, his remaining grain probably wouldn't last until spring. The village gossips called his late wife a money pit of medicine, and fourth uncle was 27 and still couldn't afford to marry because of it.
There was no way I could take food from them.
Third grandpa, we just split off and our rations are still enough for now.
Please take this back.
When we run out, I'll come find you. He refused to take it. He knew exactly how little his brother would have given us. His own sons could work in town, they wouldn't starve. But us kids had no income at all. Once our food was gone, what then?
Listen to your third grandpa. Take the grain.
If you don't, you're slapping me in the face. When he put it that way, I had no choice. I accepted it and had all the kids think improperly. That finally brought a smile to his face. He walked around the yard and looked inside. Everything was clean and orderly. The bed we'd torn apart just yesterday, not a speck of dust on the floor. Our clothes were worn and old, but washed clean. He could see I knew how to run a household, and that made him happy. He watched us head out with our baskets, probably thinking we were just going to gather firewood at the foot of the mountain. He told us to be careful and walked away with his hands behind his back. On the way up the mountain, Lin Song asked why third grandpa treated us better than our own grandpa. Lin Bai and I didn't have the answer, but I was sure something big must have happened between the older generation. Why else would great-granduncle's house sit empty for 30 years when grandpa and grandma would never waste anything? And why would a good man like third grandpa cut ties with his own brother?
But none of that matters now.
What matters is building a good life. People who treated us badly, I'll remember. People who treated us well, like third grandpa, I'll repay double. Help. Wild boar. There's a wild boar. The screaming snapped me out of my thoughts. Someone was running down the mountain, and when he got closer, I saw it was first Uncle Lin Changyu. He spotted us, stopped to catch his breath, and after a long pause just nodded when we greeted him. Didn't say a single word of warning to us, just hurried off. Most people would be terrified hearing about a wild boar. I was thrilled. If that boar fell into one of our traps, we'd have meat and fat. Enough to render plenty of cooking oil, without spending money on pork. Lin Bai and Lin Song weren't scared either. They knew about my space and that we could hide inside if things got dangerous. Lin Tong didn't care about anything as long as he was with us. Before we even reached the chilly field, we heard loud, agonized squealing. Something had fallen into a trap. Lin Bai started to run toward the sound, but I grabbed him. Don't rush. We go together. If there were more boars nearby and I wasn't with him, he'd have nowhere to hide. We followed the noise to the biggest, deepest pit. Down at the bottom lay a wild boar, had to be over 200 jin. The sharpened bamboo had gone straight through its head and belly at the same time. Lin Song stared down at it. Second sister, how much money would this sell for? That's how poor kids think. Get something good, and the first thought isn't eating it. It's how much silver it's worth. But this boar wasn't for selling. For the long-term plan of making chili oil, I needed the fat. We're not selling it. I'm going to render the fat and use it to fry chili oil to sell. Lin Bai checked the other traps. All still untouched. Second sister, this boar looks almost dead. Let's pick chilies first, and come back when it's finished. Save us the struggle. He was right. As long as it had a breath left, it would thrash around. Better to let it go on its own. With Lin Bai's help these past 2 days, the harvest was flying. One more day, and we'd have every last pepper. At noon I pulled out some hawthorn fruits, 2 each to take the edge off our hunger, and we kept working. Lin Song and Lin Tong stayed busy too, gathering firewood and checking on the boar every little while. Eventually the two of them came running to tell us the boar's belly had stopped moving. I checked the sun. Time to head home anyway. Lin Bai and I went to the pit, and after a lot of effort managed to pull the bamboo stakes out of the carcass. Once those were free, I stored the whole boar in my space. Butchering wasn't going to be a problem. The neighbor back at Grandpa's house, Annie's son's husband, is a pig butcher. Whenever he needed an extra hand, he'd call Lin Bai to help and pay Grandma 10 coins for it. She always sent him eagerly. Lin Bai never did the actual killing, but he'd watched enough to know how. Can you handle butchering this? I asked him.
I can.
Just slower than usual, that's fine. But cut me a piece of meat first. Tonight we're eating chive and pork buns. Buns. Lin Song swallowed hard. Really? I get to eat buns. He grabbed Lin Tong and spun him around in wobbly circles until Lin Tong screamed that he was scared. At our gate, Lin Bai said he needed to fetch water first. Our 2 clay jars were small. He'd have to make several trips. I was just thinking about buying a proper water vat when the neighbor's gate opened. Zhang Zhu and his wife were struggling to move a big clay vat out of their yard. There was a large chunk broken off the rim. That must have been the crash that startled me the other day, and what perfect timing. Need a hand, sister-in-law. Mrs. Zhang had been curious about us since we moved in but felt too awkward to come knock since we didn't know each other well. No, your brother Zhang can manage. You have no idea how wild my boy is. Yesterday, our chicken flew into the vat, and that little brat grabbed a rock and smashed it. Can you believe that? She left her husband to wrestle with the vat and walked right over to me. Your brother Zhang already went to town for a new one, so this is just trash now. That money-wasting child of mine. That was my opening. Sister-in-law, you know we just split off and we need everything but can't afford much. Could I take this vat off your hands, Mrs. Zhang is a gossip and a busybody, but she's not mean-hearted. Of course. If you don't mind the crack, it's yours. She told Zhang Zhu to carry it into our yard. He's the quiet, obedient type. Whatever his wife says, he does. Lin Bai set down his basket and helped, and they got the vat into our kitchen. I pressed 2 copper coins into Mrs. Zhang's hand. She tried to refuse. What are you doing? I can't take money for a broken vat. I held her hand firm. You have to take it, sister-in-law. I've got another favor to ask. I need to borrow your water buckets to fill this vat. She tucked the coins away smoothly. Husband, go haul some water for the girl's house. She turned to me. Let Brother Zhang handle the water today. And whenever you need the buckets, just come grab them. I thanked her and went back inside. The cracked vat held 3.5 buckets, and it saved me 50 coins for a new one. Worth it. Lin Bai saw Zhang Zhu off, then moved the table from the main room out to the yard for the boar. His first time butchering with no proper tools, just our 1 chip knife, so it was slow going. Bleeding, scalding, scraping the bristles, pulling out the guts, and cutting off a front leg piece for me. By the time he finished, the sun was already down. My dough was ready, and the chives were prepped. I told Lin Bai to rest while I chopped the meat filling, then rendered a small amount of fat from a fattier cut to mix into the stuffing. I work fast. In less than half an hour, big stuffed buns with thin skin and generous filling came out of the steamer, hot water dough buns, the kind that are soft and slightly translucent. The table was still covered with unfinished pork, so the 4 of us just squatted in the kitchen and ate. Lin Song and Lin Tong had grease all over their faces, saying, "So good," over and over. Lin Bai shoved each bun down in 2 or 3 bites, cheeks stuffed so full he couldn't even talk. I ate too, then started mixing more dough to rise overnight. Tomorrow morning I'd steam a batch of buns and go visit our eldest sister, Lin Ji. Lin Ji married the widower in Frontfield Village, only half an hour's walk away. Lin Bai barely slept all night, knowing we were going to see her. He was happy and scared at the same time. She hadn't come home once since the wedding, and nobody knew how she was doing. I got up before dawn to steam buns. Lin Bai heard me and went to fill the water vat. I set the buns out to cool so they wouldn't stick together, then reheated last night's leftover buns and cooked a thick pot of millet porridge from the grain third Grandpa gave us. After breakfast, I packed the buns into a basket and pulled a piece of pork for my space. I cut 2 strips, one about a jean, the other about half a jean, and put both in the basket. The cold was getting worse by the day. Our padded jackets weren't enough anymore. The moment we stepped outside, Lin Tong started saying he was cold. At night, he burrowed deep into my arms. And those window papers full of holes, I had to do something about all of it.
Today we needed to move fast.
Go see Lin Ji, come back, finish harvesting the last of the chilies, fry the chili oil, and go sell it in town tomorrow. We walked quickly to warm up. Once Lin Tong stopped shivering, he grabbed Lin Song's hand, and they played while they walked. I pulled Lin Bai along to join in. Laughing and fooling around, we reached Frontfield Village before we knew it. I didn't know which house belonged to the drunkard Feng San. I only knew the name and that he was a drunk. 2 old women were sitting under a big tree at the village entrance. I walked over with a smile. "Excuse me, could you tell me where Feng San lives?" One of them stood up immediately, her face full of concern. "Are you family of that drunkard's wife?" If she was calling him a drunkard, we had the right man. "Yes, that's my eldest sister. We came to see her." The old woman pointed ahead to a courtyard with its gate hanging open. "Right there. Go quick. Your sister has been suffering terribly." Lin Bai and I exchanged a look. We thanked her and hurried over. The gate wasn't open on purpose. It was broken, kicked apart by the looks of it. Inside the yard, a woman sat hunched over a washtub scrubbing clothes. Her hair was a tangled mess. She wore nothing but a thin single layer in this cold, and her hands were raw and red. "Big sister." Lin Song recognized her instantly and called out. Something from the original body hit me like a wave. My chest ached so badly, I couldn't move. The woman in front of me looked nothing like the girl in my memories. What kind of torture turned someone into this? Lin Bai's eyes went red. He told me later he'd been afraid all night, and now he knew why. Afraid of exactly this. He'd imagined her going hungry, being worked hard, raising someone else's children. He never imagined this. Lin Ji didn't look up. She didn't dare believe it was real. She'd dreamed this scene countless times, someone coming for her, Grandma having a change of heart, bringing her home to be with her siblings again. Every time she woke up, it was just a dream. When she first married in, she thought if she worked hard and behaved, the family would treat her decently. Instead, Feng San beat her on the wedding night because Grandma had demanded too much bride money. He told her if she didn't give him a son, he'd beat her to death. After that, every single day was fear. Whether he had no wine to drink or had drunk too much, she got hit either way. She'd thought about running home, but who there would protect her? Her siblings were too small and already mistreated. Going back would only make trouble for them. So she endured. "Big sister." Lin Song ran up and called again. She finally raised her head and saw him. "Fourth brother, is that you? Is it really you?" She wiped her hands on her clothes and pulled him into a hug, tears streaming down. Then she looked past him, at me with red eyes, at Lin Bai crying openly, at little Lin Tong standing there confused because he didn't recognize her anymore. She ran to us and threw her arms around me and Lin Bai, sobbing out loud. We held her and cried too.
We couldn't stop ourselves.
Then suddenly she remembered. Feng San and his daughter were still sleeping inside. She wiped her face and pulled us out through the gate. "What's wrong, big sister?" I could feel her fear. I held her hand. "Nothing." The house is just too messy for you to come in. Neither Lin Bai nor I believed that. Lin Bai reached out instinctively and grabbed her arm. She hissed in pain. I pushed up her sleeve. Her pale skin was covered in bruises, blue and purple everywhere. Lin Bai threw down his basket and charged toward the house to find Feng San. Lin Ji grabbed him and held on tight, crying harder. Don't go. You can't beat him. Please, big sister is begging you, don't go. I pulled Lin Bai back. If he went in there, the only result would be Lin Ji getting beaten worse. It wouldn't solve anything. He squatted on the ground, wiping his eyes, furious at himself for not being able to stand up for her. I smoothed the hair away from Lin Ji's face and told her about the family split. Her tears turned into a real smile, the first one in over a year. She was truly happy. She could take the suffering, the exhaustion, the beatings as long as we were doing okay. The buns were in Lin Bai's basket, wrapped in clean cloth. I opened them and handed her one. She looked at it and her eyes filled with tears again, but she took a big bite, so we wouldn't worry. One is enough for me. Take the rest back. Don't let those two animals have any. I'd been thinking the same thing. Even if I left them all with her, she wouldn't get to eat a single one. What I needed to figure out was how to get her home. She couldn't keep living like this. Big sister, if Feng San divorced you, could you accept that? She took another bite and gave a bitter laugh. If he'd divorce me, that would be a dream come true. Now I knew where I stood. Being divorced was the worst option reputation-wise, but if we could get an official mutual separation, that would be best. Though in this era, that's easier said than done. She finished the bun and told us to leave quickly. If Feng San woke up and saw us, there'd be trouble. I told her to take care of herself. I'd be back in a few days. She watched us walk away, not wanting to let go. Then she heard a door creak inside, wiped her tears, and hurried back into the yard. The two old women were still at the village entrance. They saw us and spoke up. Leaving already? Your sister's had it rough. Can't eat her fill, gets beaten and worked to the bone every day. I could tell this old woman had a kind heart. She wouldn't have said all this otherwise. I set down my basket and crouched in front of her. My sister ended up like this because of us. But we're just kids. We can't do anything for her right now. All I can do is ask you for a small favor. She agreed before I even finished. She lived right next door to Feng San's house. When Lin Ji first married in, she'd been warm and polite, calling her Granny sweetly. The old woman liked her. Go ahead, child. Whatever I can do, I will. I took out the buns and the one jean strip of pork from the basket. Granny, these buns are fresh from this morning, and please keep this meat for yourself too. All I ask is that you secretly give my sister one egg every day. The buns and meat would be gone in 2 meals. But give them to this old woman, and my sister gets an egg every single day. That would do far more good. The old woman didn't want to accept it first, but her own family wasn't well off either. Giving up an egg a day would need her daughter-in-law's approval. A jean of pork is worth 35 coins, and those buns would be 3 coins each at market. Looked like over 10 in that bundle. That changed things. I won't be polite about it then. I promise your sister will get 1 egg every day. I had Lin Bai, Lin Song, and Lin Tong all thank her properly. I told her I'd come back in a few days. She grabbed the meat in one hand and the bundle of buns in the other, and headed home without another word. We hurried back too. Passing through our village near Third Grandpa's house, I got my story ready, took out the half-jean strip of pork, and knocked on his gate. After the autumn harvest, most villagers only eat 2 meals a day. Some with bad harvests or little land only eat once. Third Grandpa's family had been eating just 1 meal too, but a few days ago Third Uncle's wife Wang found out she was pregnant, so they switched to 2. Third Uncle has a daughter, Lin Shuang, who's 12, same age as Lin Bai. Fourth Uncle still can't find a wife, so carrying on the family line falls on Third Uncle and Wang. After Lin Shuang was born, Wang's belly stayed quiet for years. Third Uncle had been carrying that worry like a stone on his chest. When he found out about the new baby, he hadn't stopped grinning since. Third Uncle opened the gate and welcomed us in. It was my first time at Third Grandpa's house. Their yard is bigger than ours, with 1 extra side room. Inside, the whole family was eating, each person with a bowl of watery rice porridge, so thin you couldn't see a grain, and one dish of pickled vegetables in the middle. The only difference was Wang's bowl had an egg in it. Third Grandpa stood up and told fourth uncle to grab bowls for us. Come, sit down and have some porridge. Wang waved me over to sit between her and Lin Shuang. I stopped fourth uncle before he could get the bowls. We already ate at home. I quickly pulled out the half-jean strip of pork and handed it to third uncle. He stepped back and looked at his father. I knew if I just offered it plainly, third grandpa would refuse. So I had my story ready. Third grandpa, we didn't buy this. This morning we went to visit my eldest sister. On the way back we ran into a hunter who'd hurt his foot on the mountain. We helped carry him home, and he had wild boar meat. To thank us he cut off a big piece. We've still got plenty. Please keep this. Lin Bai and Lin Song stare at me with their mouths open, then looked at each other. Their sister, making up lies on the spot without blinking. Third Grandpa waved his hand. Keep it for yourselves. You kids need the nutrition. I appreciate the thought. I pretended to head for the door. If you won't take this meat, you're treating us like strangers. I'll go get that grain you gave us and bring it right back. Fourth uncle couldn't watch anymore. He understood if they refused, we'd feel too awkward to come to them when we actually needed help. He grabbed the meat right out of my hands. How can I refuse meat from my own niece? I haven't had any in ages. Sister-in-law, make dumplings tonight. Wang is a straightforward woman. Sounds good. We'll eat well tonight thanks to our niece. She'd seen me around before but never spoken to me because of the bad blood between the families. She'd supported her father-in-law helping us with the house, but when he gave us grain yesterday, she wasn't happy. Not because she's stingy. Their own supply wouldn't last until spring, so giving food away didn't make sense. But now she was seeing a different picture. This girl was generous and knew how to handle people. A good kid. Third Grandpa wanted us to do well. That's why he'd resisted taking anything from us. But now he got it too.
All right.
Grandpa accepts what you brought. He asked about Linji. I told him the truth, the bruises, the beatings, everything. I told him I was going to find a way to get her out of that house. Fourth uncle wanted to go beat Feng Sen right then. Don't think Lin Ji's family has nobody, he said. Third uncle calmed him down. Beating the man only helps for a day. They needed a real plan. Third Grandpa just sighed. Whether it's a mutual separation or being cast out by the husband, either way Lin Ji's reputation in the village would suffer. He couldn't think of a good solution but repeated what he always said, come to him if we need anything. I agreed, said no more about it, and took my siblings home. I grabbed the 2 buns I'd set aside that morning and headed straight for the mountain. Up there Lin Bai and I dove into the chilly field and didn't stop. When Lin Song came to tell us another rabbit had fallen into a trap, neither of us even went to look. We kept picking until it was nearly dark. Every last chili was harvested. I stored the dried ones from the trees into my space. The ones still drying would have to wait. I'd come back for them later. Only then did Lin Bai remember the rabbit. He pulled it out, and I put it in the space. That made 2 rabbits now. Tonight I'd fry the chili oil, and tomorrow in town I'd sell the rabbits along with it. There was also a full set of wild boar innards. Cleaning guts is a lot of work and they don't sell for much, so I'd save those for us to eat during the new year. On the way down, Lin Tong could barely keep his eyes open. He was swaying on his feet. Lin Bai picked him up, and he fell asleep on his brother's shoulder instantly. Lin Song's eyes were drooping shut too. I offered to carry him, but he insisted he could walk. They'd been up before dawn and walked for hours, and neither boy had complained once. It made my heart ache. But we just moved in. I couldn't leave them home alone while I went up the mountain. Back home, Lin Bai laid Lin Tong on the warm bed. The little one rolled over and kept sleeping. I washed Lin Song's hands and face and asked if he was hungry. He'd eaten most of a bun that afternoon and wasn't, so I sent him to sleep too. Lin Bai and I drank some millet porridge, then got to work rendering lard. Wild boar isn't as fatty as farm pig, but a 200 gene boar would give us at least 40 gene of oil. I pulled meat out of the space piece by piece and had Lin Bai cut off the fat. We'd render 10 gene tonight. I washed all the clay jars for storing oil and prepped scallions, ginger, garlic, and dried chilies. When Lin Bai finished cutting, I stoked the fire a little higher. Too much meat for one batch, so we split it into 3 rounds. The fat hit the pan with a loud sizzle. I stirred constantly with the ladle, frying off the moisture first, then lowering the flame to a slow render. The smell of pork fat filled the kitchen and made my mouth water. When the crackling bits turned golden, I scooped out the oil and the cracklings separately. 3 rounds, all the fat rendered down. Then I poured the clean oil back into the wok, tossed in the scallions, ginger, and garlic, and cranked the fire. When they turned color, I fished them out fast. Now the oil was ready for the chilies. I ladled it over the dried peppers 1 scoop at a time. Each pour sizzled and released this incredible aroma, spicy and rich, completely overpowering the smell of rendered fat. Lin Bai had never smelled anything like it. Second sister, it smells amazing. Is this the same as regular lard? I looked at the finished chili oil, deep red, vibrant, the scent hitting you right in the nose.
Perfect.
They're used differently. Chili oil is for adding flavor. Just 1 tiny drop makes any food taste better. Don't worry, tomorrow I'll cook something with it so you can all try. The pork cracklings had cooled. Lin Bai and I each grabbed a small handful and ate them. Then we washed up and went to bed. The moment I crawled under the blankets, Lin's song mumbled in his sleep.
Buns.
Smells good. I held in my laugh and lay there in the dark, calculating how much to charge for the chili oil. This batch of chili oil was pure profit. The chilies and the pork fat cost me nothing. But I needed to plan ahead for when I'd have to buy pork. Pork is 35 coins a jean, and if I'm buying only the fatty cuts, it'll be more. Call it 40 coins a jean. 1 jean of fat renders about 6 liang of oil. 10 jean of fat means 6 jean of oil, costing 400 coins. So the chili oil can't sell for less than 80 coins a jean. I've got roughly 2,000 jean of fresh chilies in my space. 1 jean of fresh peppers dries down to 4 liang. That's 800 jean of dried chilies. At a ratio of 1 jean of dried chili to 4 jean of oil, that's over 3,000 jean of chili oil. At 100 coins a jean, my brain got tangled trying to calculate. Before I fell asleep, I settled on a price, 120 coins a jean. Next morning, I steamed rough rice, stir-fried pork cracklings with chives, and blanched some wild greens dressed with just a tiny bit of chili oil. Lin Bai and I were heading to town today. The ox cart costs money we didn't want to spend, so we'd be walking an hour in the cold. With our thin jackets, we needed full stomachs. Lin Bai fetched water and woke the little ones. I wasn't bringing Lin Song and Lin Tong. Too far, too tiring. I'd ask Mrs. Zhang next door to keep an eye on them. Before eating, Lin Bai looked at the steamed rice and worried I was using too much grain. But the moment he tasted the wild greens with chili oil, that worry vanished. He shoveled in another huge bite. That tingling heat and that unique fragrance made even plain greens delicious. He finished a whole bowl of rice without realizing it. Second sister, this chili oil is incredible. It's going to sell for sure. Lin Song and Lin Tong were too busy inhaling food and cracklings to talk, just gasping between bites. Since the family split, they'd been eating well every day. Their faces were already filling out. I told Mrs. Zhang we were leaving, and she cheerfully agreed to watch the boys. I reminded Lin Song to look after Lin Tong, and promised we'd be back by afternoon no matter what. I pulled the 2 rabbits from my space into the basket, filled a clay jar with about 5 jean of chili oil, and Lin Bai, and I set off. Thank goodness we'd eaten well. Walking an hour into the cold wind on an empty stomach would have been miserable. The original owner of this body had never been to town. Lin Bai had gone a few times with the butcher next door. Should we go to the market? He asked. I thought about it. Sitting at the market waiting for buyers wouldn't work. At 120 coins a jean, ordinary families couldn't afford it anyway. Take me to wherever there are lots of small food shops. I'd considered the big restaurants, but one look at our ragged clothes and we'd never get past the front door. Small eateries were our best bet. Lin Bai knew just the place, a whole street of little food shops near the market. The butcher had taken him there for noodles once. We walked about half a cup of tea's time and arrived at the food street. I walked the whole length first, mostly noodle shops, wonton places, and steamed bun stalls. It was still early, not many diners yet. I picked a noodle shop that had a few customers and ordered a bowl of plain noodles for 3 coins. It hurt to spend it, but I had a plan. When the waiter brought the bowl, I set my clay jar on the table, opened it, and dipped the tip of my chopsticks in. Just a touch of chili oil, and the pale broth noodles turned rich and red. Beautiful. The fresh fried chili oil's aroma was powerful. Every head in the shop turned our way. 2 men walked in right then. "Something smells amazing," one said. They eyed my red-tinted noodles and sat down beside us, ordering 2 bowls. Lin, Bai, and I weren't even hungry. We ate slowly, waiting. Their noodles came, and after 2 bites, one of them called the waiter over.
This doesn't taste right.
"I want mine like hers." The waiter had been watching us too, wondering what we'd put in our noodles. "Sorry, that's something she brought herself. We don't have it." The tall one slapped his chopsticks on the table. "You should have said so. We only came in because of the smell. How are we supposed to eat this now?" The waiter could only apologize. This was exactly what I'd wanted. If I'd walked in asking the waiter to buy my oil, he'd have said no without thinking. I spoke up. "Could you bring me a spoon?" Lin Bai finally understood why I'd spent 3 coins on a bowl of noodles. The waiter got it too and hurried to fetch a spoon. I scooped a little oil and walked over to the 2 men's table. "This is my family's secret recipe chili oil. You can't get it anywhere else. If you don't mind, give it a try." They'd already lifted their bowls before I finished speaking. "Don't mind at all." "Thank you, miss." The other diners had been drooling since the aroma hit them. Seeing me share with those 2, they brought their bowls over too, shameless but eager. I only gave each bowl 2 drops. People here had never tasted anything this strong, and 2 drops was enough to make the flavor unforgettable. One man whose bowl was down to just broth carried it over, took 1 sip standing there, and announced to the room, "This is better than meat." Her family's secret chili oil with a bowl of noodles beats a plate of pork. A big burly man inhaled his entire bowl, immediately ordered a second, and shamelessly asked me for 2 more drops. The shop was run by 2 brothers. Lu Er waited tables while Lu De made noodles in the back. Lu De had been too busy to come out, but he'd heard everything. The moment he finished, he came straight to the front. "Miss, may I see your chili oil?" I nodded and spooned some out for him. He took it, smelled it, and his eyes went wide. The flavor was completely unique. And the way it transformed a plain bowl of broth noodles, the color alone made you hungry. "Are you selling this?" I sighed and put on a worried face. "I didn't make it to sell. It's a family recipe just for us. But times have been hard, getting worse every year, so I thought I'd try." Lu De made up his mind instantly. Something this good, if I was willing to sell, I'd have no shortage of buyers. He needed to move first. And it wasn't just him. The diners wanted to buy too. Imagine cooking at home with a little of this. "How much per jean?" Everyone watched me, hands ready to reach for their money. 120 coins a jean. The regular diners backed off. Too expensive. But Lu De was doing the math in his head. He didn't know why the oil was red, but he could see it was pork-based. Pork oil is pricey. 120 wasn't unreasonable. He'd only need 2 drops per bowl. 1 jean would last through hundreds of servings. He could charge 1 extra coin per bowl and still profit. Even if he used more and broke even on the oil itself, the aroma alone would pull in more customers. No matter how he calculated it, this was a good deal. The 2 men and the big fellow saw Lu De hesitating and jumped in, telling him that if he bought the oil, they'd eat at his shop every single day.
Lu De made up his mind to buy.
He asked how much I had, and when I said 5 jean, he took it all. His only request was that I wait 2 days before selling to anyone else so he could have a head start. That worked fine for me too. The jar held a full 5 jean, if not more, but we settled on 5. Lu De was generous. He didn't even charge us for the noodles. 600 coins for 5 jean of chili oil. Lin Bai had never seen that much money in his life. As long as we kept making and selling chili oil, we'd never have to worry about starving. We still had 2 rabbits in the basket. At the market entrance, I found a spot and set them on the ground. Fresh-caught wild rabbits, selling cheap. "Come by." Lin Bai burst out laughing. Then he thought about me saying ancestral secret recipe back at the noodle shop and laughed even harder. Second sister, you're getting better and better at tricking people. I pinched his arm. I wasn't tricking anyone. Time stands still in my space, so the rabbits were as fresh as the moment they died. How is that not fresh caught? A woman came over, looked at both rabbits, and asked the price. A live rabbit normally sells for 30 coins. Mine were dead, so I asked 35 for the pair. She thought it was fair and bought them both. I was about to leave when I spotted a fortune teller's stall nearby. I'd been racking my brain about how to get Lin Ji away from Feng San, and seeing that fortune teller, an idea suddenly clicked into place. I asked around and learned he set up there regularly. Good. I filed that away. Lin Bai and I went into a fabric shop. Winter was coming fast, and we needed thicker jackets and quilts, or we wouldn't survive it. Rough cloth was 100 coins per bolt. One bolt was only enough for one set of clothes for one person. Cotton batting was 120 coins a jean, and one jean spread thin barely covered one person. At those prices, today's chili oil money wouldn't even outfit all of us. Then I noticed the shop owner come in through the back door carrying 2 bolts of cloth. He tossed them on the floor. They'd gotten damp and moldy, rotted through the middle. Only the edges on both sides were still good, about a hand's width each. Get someone to haul these out and throw them away before they ruin the rest, he told the shop boy. I looked at those edges. The good fabric was better than anything we were wearing. Our clothes were nothing but patches. After the owner left, I held out 10 coins to the shop boy. How many ruined bolts do you have? Want my brother and me to carry them out for you? Lin Bai caught on immediately. I wanted those good edges. The boy saw the money and understood too. The cloth was going in the trash anyway. Someone offering to do the hauling and pay him for it was a gift. Over 30 bolts. Can the two of you carry all that? I smiled and nodded. Even 300 bolts wouldn't be a problem. We followed him to the storeroom. The roof had been leaking without anyone noticing, and the cloth had been rotting for who knows how long. But there was more than just cloth. There were about 10 jean of moldy cotton batting too. I pulled out another 10 coins. Are you keeping this cotton? The boy couldn't decide on the cotton himself. Cleaned up and sold cheap. It might still be worth something. He took my 10 coins anyway and went to ask the owner, who said processing moldy cotton was too much hassle. 15 coins a jean and we could have it. My heart nearly sang. The savings were enormous. The 3 of us made several trips hauling everything to the front door. I had the boy watch the pile while Lin Bai and I carried load after load to somewhere private, and I stored it all in my space. When we were done, I thanked the boy and told him if they ever had more ruined goods to throw away, save them for me. He'd made 20 easy coins, so he agreed happily. A huge weight off my mind. With all that cloth and cotton, we had enough for clothes and quilts for everyone, Lin Ji included. Next we hit the grain shop. 20 jean of rough rice for 100 coins. 20 jean of coarse flour for 160. 1 jean of coarse salt for 30. 2 water buckets for 30. A pair of scissors for 50. 370 coins total. I spotted a malt candy seller and spent 5 coins on a big piece, cracked it in half, and wrapped each half in paper. At the market entrance, I noticed someone selling chicks, ducklings, and even goats. I wanted a mother goat, but at 2 taels of silver, it was way out of reach. For the trip home, we took the ox cart, 4 coins for the 2 of us. At our gate, Lin Song and Lin Tong were playing with Mrs. Zhang's 8-year-old son Zhang Shan, while Mrs. Zhang sat on a stool stitching shoe soles. I gave 1 packet of candy to Zhang Shan and 1 to Lin Song, telling them to snack while they played. Mrs. Zhang said I shouldn't have spent the money. I smiled and told her it was just a few pieces of candy, nothing at all. She went home to cook and Zhang Shan followed. Lin Song knew we must be tired and went straight to the kitchen to make dinner without being asked. While he cooked, I pulled all the cloth and cotton out of my space and spread it in the yard. Lin Bai got the face cloths we use for picking chilies, and we both tied them over our noses. Lin Bai laid out the moldy cotton to air, while I went through every bolt with the scissors, cutting away the good edges. Tomorrow I'd wash it all, and patch up every window that was letting cold air in. The quilts and padded jackets would have to wait until the cotton was properly cleaned and dried. Then I'd ask Mrs. Zhang to sew us some cotton shoes. Between everything, We'd make it through winter. Lin Song reheated the leftover rice into porridge and fried a few eggs in pork fat. Lin Bai and I praised him, and he puffed out his chest and declared he was taking over all the cooking from now on. It had been an exhausting day. We all went to bed early. Tomorrow we needed to go back up the mountain, collect the drying chilies from the trees, hang fresh ones, and check the traps. If another wild boar fell in, that would be perfect. Lin Bai was thinking about the traps too. In the morning he hauled water, ate breakfast, helped me wash every piece of salvaged cloth, spread the cotton back out to air in the yard, and then stood there with his basket on his back, ready to go. Lin Song and Lin Tong had their little baskets on too. They waited for me to drape the last piece of cloth over the firewood to dry, and we headed for the mountain. Up on the mountain, no wild boar in the traps, but there was another rabbit. I happily stored it away. More money coming in. I pulled all the fresh chilies out of my space and spread them to dry. By late morning we headed back down. The wild greens on the mountain were past their season now, all tough and old, so no more foraging. The main thing was gathering firewood, lots of it. I had the little ones pick thin branches we could use for weaving baskets to organize things inside the space. At noon I sliced off some pork, stir-fried it with wild greens, and cooked rough rice. After lunch, Lin Bai took the boys to haul water for washing the cotton. I cut some cloth scraps, mixed a bit of flour paste, and patched every hole in our window paper. The room got darker, but darker meant warmer, and that's what mattered. I borrowed a big basin from Mrs. Zhang next door. She handed it over without hesitation and said to keep it as long as I needed. Lin Bai and the boys made over 20 trips to the river with the buckets and jars. We washed that cotton 8 or 10 times before I was satisfied. We couldn't lay it on bare ground, so we lined up firewood and spread the cotton on top. By the time we finished, everyone's hands were bright red from the cold. The boys were completely spent. I felt bad for them. Hauling water from the river in this cold was miserable. Once the chili oil money came in, I'd have a well dug in the yard come spring. I heated the bed and told Lin Bai to rest with the little ones. Lin Bai carried Lin Tong to the bed, but instead of resting, he went outside to weave baskets. Lin Song stayed to help me tend the fire. We ate leftovers from noon, reheated into porridge with the remaining vegetables. A simple meal before bed. After dark, the cotton had drained enough to bring inside. We squeezed together on the bed, with it laid out beside us. Lin Bai got up in the middle of the night to stoke the fire. By morning the cotton was dry to the touch. We spread it outside again at dawn. One full day of sunshine, and it would be ready to use. It'd be a bit lumpy, but lumpy cotton beats no cotton at all. That morning I told everyone we could rest for half a day. The chilies weren't urgent, and I'd fry the oil that night. But by afternoon the sky turned dark and threatening. I told the boys to get the cotton inside, and Lin Bai and I raced up the mountain. If rain hit those drying chilies, we'd be in real trouble. We barely made it in time, getting everything stored before the first drops fell. Back home, I sat on the bed sewing cloth scraps into wrapping bundles and packed the cotton up so it wouldn't take over the whole sleeping space. The cotton was ready to use now, but the chilies still needed more drying time. I'd planned to return Mrs. Zhang's basin and bring her cloth and cotton to make us shoes. The ground would start freezing after this rain, so we needed shoes fast. But the rain wouldn't stop. I measured everyone's feet with sticks, used my own size for Lin Ji since her feet were close to mine, and went next door with the basin balanced over my head. When I told Mrs. Zhang about the shoes, her face lit up. 15 coins a pair, including the soles and labor. She said she'd have them done in 2 days. That money equaled what her husband Zhang Zhu earned in 2 days doing odd jobs in town. After I left, she started sewing right away, telling Zhang Shan to play with Lin Song more and stop running around with the other village brats. The rain was light but endless. I shelved the chili oil plan if it was still raining tomorrow. We couldn't get to town anyway. Before bed, I checked outside. The rain had picked up, mixed with snow now. I worried whether we'd get any more drying days for the chilies. The first half of the night was fine. Then I woke to dripping. The roof was leaking not one spot but 4 or 5 on and off the bed. So much for First Uncle's one-day repair job. What exactly did he and those villagers do all day? Lin Bai woke too. He lit the lamp and ran through the rain to the kitchen for our buckets and jars. Clay jars on the bed to catch the drips. Wooden buckets on the floor. We just laid back down when two more spots opened up. One was directly over Lin Song's head. A raindrop fell straight into his open mouth. He smacked his lips, swallowed, and kept sleeping. Lin Bai and I looked at each other, biting back laughter, and dragged his blanket out of the way. The rain lasted until morning. Our room was a maze of buckets, jars, and bowls. Lin Song and Lin Tong woke up bewildered. They'd slept through the whole thing. I sent Lin Bai to get third grandpa and our uncles. Third uncle and fourth uncle had been doing day labor in town since the harvest, heavy lifting whatever work came up, not every day. Today they happened to be home. All three came quickly. Fourth uncle showed up with a ladder on his shoulder, propped it against the wall, and climbed right up. He stood there a long time looking. Then he came down shaking his head. No wonder Lin Chongyu finished in one day. He just slapped some patches on to fool the kids. This whole roof needs to be torn off and redone. If we get heavy snow this winter, it could collapse. Third grandpa went up to look for himself. Little Mion, pack your things and move into my house. Don't worry about the rest. I didn't want to burden him, and rebuilding the roof would cost money I didn't have, and I couldn't let him pay either. Third grandpa, last year's snow wasn't bad. Let's patch it with straw and mud for this winter, and I'll redo it properly after the new year when it warms up. If the snow does get heavy, we'll come straight to your house. I had my own plans. Third grandpa didn't push it. If we came to his place during heavy snow, same result. Third uncle and fourth uncle went to bundle rice straw. Lin Bai dug clay. Third grandpa mixed the mud. They worked all morning getting the roof patched up. I'd been cooking the whole time. I made hand-pulled noodles with an egg and chive topping. I filled 3 big bowls to the brim for third grandpa and the uncles, and ladled small bowls for us. Third grandpa, third uncle, fourth uncle, come try my noodles. Third grandpa looked at those huge bowls and his heart ached for my supplies. Little Mion, that's enough food for your siblings for days. Lin Bai brought water for hand washing. Before third grandpa could protest more, Lin Song and Lin Tong grabbed him by the arms and pulled him to the table. Lin Song put chopsticks in his hand. Third grandpa, you worked all morning. You must be hungry. Eat. Third grandpa patted Lin Song's head. All right. Grandpa will eat. I smiled at Lin Song. Smart boy. Third grandpa, I could never let you and the uncles help us all morning and then go home hungry. Fourth uncle sat right down, grabbed his chopsticks, lifted the bowl, and took an enormous bite. Delicious. Third grandpa smacked the back of his head. All you think about is eating. Fourth uncle swallowed. Dad, she already made it. If we don't finish, it goes to waste. Always got an answer, don't you? Third grandpa told me I couldn't keep spending like this. If I wanted him to stay for a meal, porridge and pickled vegetables was plenty. I smiled and nodded. Third uncle ate a few big mouthfuls, then slowed down. I could tell he was thinking about saving some for Wang and Lin Shuang. Real noodles with fresh egg and chive sauce was something their family might eat once a year. But then he worried I'd read too much into it, so he finished the bowl clean. After they left, I walked them to the gate. I quietly called fourth uncle back and slipped him a bowl. Noodles with the egg and chive topping. He tapped my forehead with one finger, took the bowl, and walked away. Once the sky cleared, Lin Bai and I went up the mountain to spread the chilies out for drying. He brought the hoe and knife and set up a few more traps. We'd slept badly the night before, so after coming down I rendered more lard, fried a fresh batch of chili oil, and we went straight to bed. Next morning I packed the leftover 5 gene from before plus 10 new gene of chili oil into clay jars, wrapped them in cloth, and Lin Bai and I took the ox cart to town. We arrived around noon and headed straight for the little noodle shop. As soon as we turned into that street, I could see a crowd gathered in front of one place. When we got closer, I barely recognized it. In just 2 days, the Liu brothers had put up a big new sign, hired an extra waiter, and expanded into the shop next door. Liu air was running between both storefronts, drenched in sweat despite the cold. Over a dozen people sat outside waiting for a table, craning their necks to peek inside. Some snapped at Liu air asking when a spot would open up. Others who'd come from far away took one look at the line. muttered that they'd have to come earlier tomorrow, and left. Lin Bai stared at the madness with the proudest grin on his face. All this because of his sister's chili oil. The brothers were too busy for me to approach, so I pulled Lin Bai across the street to a tea house. It was packed too. We had to share a table. After sitting a while, I realized half the people in here were from other towns, drawn by the noodle shop's reputation. Someone asked the tea boy what was so special about those noodles that people lined up in this cold. The tea house was riding the noodle shop's coattails, so the boy talked it up like it was the greatest thing on earth. You know how fancy restaurants use expensive Sichuan peppercorn? Those noodles taste even better than that. I had a bowl yesterday when it wasn't crowded. Most amazing thing I've ever eaten in my life. Some people laughed and said he was exaggerating, but it only made them want to try more. Hearing all this, I knew one thing for certain. 120 coins a jean was too cheap. After the lunch rush died down, the tea house emptied. I paid our 2 coins for tea, and we crossed the street before the dinner crowd arrived. Luer spotted me the instant I walked out. He practically yelped, ran over, and took the jars from my hands.
Miss.
My brother was talking about you this morning. If you hadn't come soon, we'd have had to shut down. He led us to the back kitchen. Lu just set down what he was doing and visibly relaxed, seeing 3 jars. That's got to be over 10 jean. I'll take it all. And there's something I'd like to discuss with you. I'd already guessed what he wanted to say. We hadn't eaten since breakfast, so I asked him to make us 2 bowls of noodles and we'd talk while we ate. I was right. He wanted me to sell exclusively to a shop in this town. I asked how much oil he used per day. About 1 jean, he said. I did the math. With the amount of chilies in my space, selling to random buyers would drain my stock faster and mess up the market. If someone figured out the recipe, I'd lose everything. Better to supply just 1 buyer, charge for exclusivity, and keep the business stable and long-term. Luda, I'll call you Brother Lu. Selling only to you is fine, but his face lit up before I even finished. Just call me Brother Lu. Whatever your conditions are, name them. If you want exclusive supply, it's 20 taels of silver. And the price per jean goes up 30 coins. Lin Bai nearly choked on his noodles when he heard 20 taels. He'd never dreamed of that kind of money. Before, just having enough to eat seemed like a fantasy. Now real prosperity was knocking on our door. Brother Lu agreed, without a second thought. With business booming like this, 20 taels was nothing. He couldn't pull it all together at once, though. He'd pay 15 now, and the remaining 5 when I delivered next time. That was fine with me. He settled up. 15 jean of chili oil at 150 coins per jean came to 2 taels, 250 coins, plus the 15 taels up front. Total, 17 taels, 250 coins. He walked me to the door and made me promise to deliver again in 10 days. Outside, Lin Bai held the heavy cloth bundle of money against his chest, listening to the copper coins clink together, grinning ear to ear. Second sister, is this really our money? Am I dreaming? I pinched his arm. It had more meat on it than before.
Ow.
Okay, not a dream. I took out 200 coins and pretended to put the rest into the basket, then stored it in my space. Come on, let's sell the rabbit. At the market, I sent Lin Bai off to find a spot for the rabbit and went looking for the fortune teller I'd noticed last time. He was right where I'd seen him before. I sat down at his little table. Looking for a love reading, miss? Or fortune and wealth? I put 200 coins on the table. I'm not here for a reading. I want to hire you for half a day, 500 coins total. 200 now, 300 when it's done. A single reading only costs him 100 coins. 500 for half a day's work was generous. The fortune teller smiled and said he'd hear me out. I laid out my plan in detail, exactly what I needed him to do, what to say, and where to go. I gave him the location of Lin Ji's house. Don't worry, sir. Whether it works or not, I'll come back the day after tomorrow with the remaining 300. He told me not to worry either. Talking was his trade. He couldn't guarantee results on my end, but he'd deliver his part perfectly. Business done, I wandered the market. I bought 2 cabbages and 4 radishes for 30 coins. Soy sauce and vinegar, 1 jean each, 10 coins. A proper kitchen knife for 80 coins. 2 large wooden basins for 30 coins. Last stop was the medicine shop. I spent 20 coins on a small packet of laxative powder. I found a quiet spot, stored everything in my space, and went to find Lin Bai. He'd just sold the rabbit, 20 coins. We caught the ox cart home. Lin's song had the rice steamed and waiting. I tossed in a few dried chilies and some vinegar and stir-fried a hot and sour cabbage. Delicious over rice. After dinner, I remembered I needed eggs for visiting Lin Ji tomorrow. I went around the village before dark and knocked on 3 doors, scraping together 20 eggs for 20 coins. Next morning, I went to Front Field Village alone. Before leaving, I pulled out some ribs from my space and told Lin Bai to stew them for lunch. The village entrance was empty, too cold now for the old women to sit outside. At Feng San's house, the gate was still broken and hanging open, but Lin Ji wasn't in the yard. I remembered the kind old woman from last time saying she lived right next door, but Feng San's house had neighbors on both sides. While I stood there figuring it out, the left side gate opened, and out came the very woman I was looking for. Granny! She recognized me right away and hurried over. Perfect timing. I was just about to fetch your sister for her egg. Come inside where it's warm. She brought me into her front room and had her daughter-in-law pour me hot water. I held the warm bowl and thought about how desperately I needed to finish those padded jackets. The daughter-in-law studied me quietly. She seemed surprised that Feng San's wife had family who actually cared about her. Soon the old woman came back with Lin Ji. Her daughter-in-law brought out 2 eggs. I handed the old woman the 20 eggs I'd brought. Thank you for looking after my sister these past days. Please keep these, and I'm sorry to keep troubling you. She accepted with a little show of reluctance. After the meat and buns just days ago, and now 20 more eggs, a little trouble was nothing. I asked for a moment alone with Lin Ji. The old woman and her daughter-in-law stepped out. I gave Lin Ji the packet of laxative powder. She nearly jumped out of her skin. You're not trying to get me to poison Feng San, are you? I can't do that. I couldn't help a dry laugh. That's not what this is, big sister. Just listen. I explained the plan carefully. She was to slip tiny amounts of the laxative into Feng San's food, so little he wouldn't notice anything unusual. Starting today, she had to stop speaking to him completely. Even when he hit her, she was to take it in silence. And at night, she wasn't to go to bed early. At midnight, she had to go into the yard and chop wood, the thickest log she could find. I told her this was how we'd get her out of that house. Lin Ji didn't understand any of it, but she trusted me. I didn't stay long. Feng San and his daughter slept until almost noon. He saw the watery porridge on the table, so thin you could see her reflection in it, cursed a few times, and drank it down in one gulp. When Lin Ji didn't respond, he got angrier and slapped her across the face. You worthless money pit. I spent all that silver on you, and you can't even give me a son. His daughter drank her porridge, shot Lin Ji a resentful look, and went back to her room to lie down. Feng San cursed his way out to the yard. Lin Ji held her face and cleared the table. She'd barely finished washing dishes when she heard yelling from outside. She opened the door and saw Feng San screaming at a fortune teller. My fortune teller. Don't try to swindle my money. My forehead isn't dark at all. Blood calamity? Go to hell, the fortune teller sighed calmly. I'm not asking for payment. I just wanted to warn you out of kindness. Believe me or don't. That's your choice. But remember, if you don't start treating people better, that blood calamity isn't far off. He shook his head and walked away toward the village edge. A neighbor named Wang Si happened to be passing. He noticed the fortune teller hadn't even tried to collect money from Feng San. No scammer would do that. Brother Feng, that man has no grudge against you and wouldn't take your money. Seems like he was being genuine. You should be careful. Wang Si looked closely at Feng San's face. Brother, your forehead really does look dark. Feng San wasn't stupid. When you eat nothing but see-through porridge 3 meals a day, of course your complexion goes bad. But a seed of doubt was planted. Then his stomach cramped, and he rushed to the outhouse. Eating almost nothing during the day and running to the toilet twice left him exhausted. He went to bed early that night. Sometime later, loud chopping jolted him awake. He reached over. Lin Ji wasn't beside him. He shuffled to the door and cracked it open. In the moonlight, Lin Ji was swinging an axe into a log as thick as a rice bowl. She started with steady, measured swings, but as she chopped, all her suffering came pouring out, sold off by her own grandparents, beaten and degraded every day by this drunk. Her strikes got harder, faster, furious, pouring every ounce of rage into the wood. Feng Sen watched the woman who'd always been meek and easy to bully, now transformed, and a chill ran through him. The fortune-teller's words echoed, blood calamity. He thought about opening the door and screaming at her. Then he noticed the axe in her hands and quietly closed the door. He didn't dare sleep until she came back to bed and passed out first. Next day, his temper flared again, and he reached to hit her out of habit. But Lin Ji stared back at him with burning, silent fury. He remembered the moonlit axe and pulled his hand back. That night, she chopped wood again. Feng San didn't sleep at all, eating little, losing it from both ends, afraid to close his eyes at night. Feng San was already skin and bones, and in 2 days he looked like a different person. When Wang Si bumped into him again, he actually recoiled. "Brother Feng, it's not just your forehead now. Your whole face is dark." I think that fortune-teller was right. Wang Si hurried away, afraid the bad luck might be contagious. Feng Sen glared at Lin Ji, washing clothes in the yard. This was all her fault. Meanwhile, I sat on our warm bed sewing cloth, waiting. Over the past few days, I'd collected all the remaining chilies from the mountain, gone to town to pay the fortune-teller his remaining 300 coins, and now there was nothing to do but be patient. Lin Ji's situation was a waiting game and a gamble. A gamble on who had more nerve. If Feng Sen truly feared nothing, then all of this was wasted effort. But if he was the type whose bark was worse than his bite, and I was betting he was, then this would work out just fine. I was thinking it through when someone banged on our gate. Lin Bai was in the kitchen weaving a basket, so he went to answer. It was Zhang Shan looking for Lin Song to go gather firewood. Lin Song was thrilled. He and Lin Tong grabbed their baskets and left with him. They'd barely gone, and the gate was still open when third Aunt Wang arrived, carrying a big bowl of pickled vegetables. She'd never forgotten the noodles I'd secretly sent home with fourth uncle for her and Lin Shuang. She walked into our room and saw cloth scraps covering the entire bed. "Where did all this fabric come from? Are you making clothes?" I took the bowl from her. "Please sit down, third aunt." The cloth came from a fabric shop in town. They were throwing it away, so Lin Bai and I brought it all home. Wang thought to herself that for a young girl, I sure knew where to spend and where to save. She kicked off her shoes, climbed onto the bed, picked up a needle, and started helping without being asked. She said she'd bring Lin Shuang tomorrow. With 3 of us working, we have all the clothes done in a few days. That would be wonderful, third aunt. I don't know how to sew clothes, I was just worrying about that. Her hands didn't stop moving while she talked. Don't be polite with me. Whenever you need clothes or shoes made, just come find your third aunt. Gives us a chance to chat too. Lin Bai had barely sat down to start a new basket when someone pounded on the gate again, hard and urgent. Lin Bai opened the gate. The man standing outside was skin and bones, and even though Lin Bai didn't know him, something about him was instantly repulsive. Lin Bai raised his voice without even meaning to. "Who are you looking for?" Wang and I came out from the room. One look and I knew that was Feng San. He couldn't take it anymore. Lin Ji chopping wood in the moonlight with that fierce look haunted him. He was terrified she'd swing the axe at his neck one night. So he decided to return Lin Ji, get his 8 taels back, and be done with it. He'd gone to Grandpa and Grandma first. Grandma told him to come find us.
I'm Feng San.
Your worthless girl hasn't given me a son in over a year. Give me back my 8 taels and come take her away. The second Lin Bai heard the name Feng San, he spun around to grab the broom from the yard. I stopped him. Not yet. Wang had heard about Lin Ji's situation when I brought the meat to third grandpa's house. She saw Feng San was here looking for trouble and slipped out the gate quietly, heading home to get help. I crossed my arms and looked at Feng San. There's an old saying, a married daughter is like water poured out. You think just because you tell us to take her back, we will? That stumped him. Grandpa wouldn't deal with it, and now the girl's own sister was brushing him off. If it weren't for the fortune teller warning him to act decently, he'd have sold Lin Ji to a brothel. Quicker money than begging her family.
Fine.
Half. For taels, Lin Bai had been thrilled hearing there was a way to get our sister back, and we'd just earned enough money. But then I'd said no.
He didn't understand.
Second sister. I glared at him and pinched his arm hard. Second sister, what? Do you have money? We'd have to beg and borrow just for one tael. I turned back to Feng San. We can't afford it. Just go home and treat my sister well. Lin Bai got the message from that pinch. He moved to close the gate. Feng San couldn't stand keeping Lin Ji another single day. He scratched his head, gritted his teeth. One tael of silver. I'll give you 1 day to get the money. If nobody comes for her by tonight, I'll strangle her. I answered like I barely cared. I'll try. He repeated the threat about strangling her over and over, terrified we wouldn't actually come. Third grandpa arrived with third uncle and fourth uncle just as Feng San was leaving. Fourth uncle grabbed him by the collar. You're the one causing trouble? Feng San took one look at the two brothers' solid builds, and his legs went weak. No trouble. No trouble at all. He was thinking how lucky he was that he'd listened to the fortune teller about being decent. If he'd tried selling Lin Ji to a brothel, these men might have killed him. Third grandpa checked on Lin Bai, and me first. Seeing we were fine, he relaxed. Fourth uncle, let him go, I said. Fourth uncle released his collar and kicked him once for good measure. Get lost. The moment he was free, Feng San bolted. Third grandpa was still worried. What if Feng San came back, or took it out on Lin Ji? Come inside, third grandpa. Let me explain everything. Wang came running back with Lin Shuang. She'd passed Feng San on the road and knew he'd left. Inside, I told everyone the full story, hiring the fortune teller, giving Lin Ji the laxative, telling her to stop talking to Feng San, and the midnight wood chopping. Lin Bai was upset, not angry, just worried about me. Second sister, from now on you have to tell me things first. I rubbed his head. I promise. No more secrets. Fourth uncle burst out laughing when he heard my plan. He said I had a brilliant head on my shoulders and called Feng San a complete idiot. Third grandpa was amazed that I could come up with something like this. He said with me leading, the siblings would never be taken advantage of. Then he thought about the one tael. We just split off. We probably didn't have 10 coins, let alone a whole tael. Your third uncle and fourth uncle have earned about 300 coins from town jobs. I'll borrow the rest from around the village. Tonight they'll go get Lin Ji. Wang stood up to go home for the money too. Forget worrying about silver. Getting the girl home came first. I gently pushed Wang back into her seat. Third grandpa, we have the money. I went to the other room, pulled a string of coins from my space, exactly one tael, and brought it out. Every single person stared at me with wide eyes. Fourth uncle took the string and bounced it in his hand. Where did this come from? Lin Bai quietly lowered his head. He knew I was about to spin another story. I smiled. Third grandpa, you know our mother wasn't from around here. She was from the south. She knew how to make a special seasoning called chili oil, and she taught me before she died. This money is from selling it. Third grandpa actually did know about our mother. She'd come north looking for relatives, got robbed on the road, and never found them. She collapsed from hunger by the roadside, and our father, Lin Changha, saved her. Everyone in the village knew the story. Somehow Grandma talked her into marrying our father without paying a single coin of bride price. Whether she knew how to cook anything special, nobody would know. That's wonderful news. Grandpa's happy for you kids. Now, let's not rush to pick up Lin Ji. Let Feng San stew in his fear a while longer. We'll go after dark. I hadn't expected Feng San to crack this fast. Lin Ji's new clothes weren't even finished yet. Third grandpa took his sons home to prepare. Wang and Lin Shuang stayed. The three of us split up the sewing work. Lin Ji needed to come home to a new outfit. My job was simple, just stitch the fabric pieces together. Once I'd done that, I had nothing more to contribute, so I headed to the kitchen. Lin Song and Lin Tong came back with their little baskets full of firewood. They washed up and ran to help me. When Lin Song heard that big sister was coming home tonight, he grabbed Lin Tong and spun him in circles, both of them laughing. I kneaded dough and pulled the remaining half cabbage from my space. Tonight we were having cabbage and pork crackling dumplings. Wang and Lin Shuang worked fast. By dusk, a complete outfit was done. Wang had just sat down to stretch her legs when I called from the front room. Third aunt, no resting for you, and Shuang tonight. Come help me wrap dumplings. Lin Shuang's eyes lit up. She'd just had those noodles a few days ago, and her appetite hadn't stopped thinking about it. Dumplings too? She shoved her feet into her shoes and ran out. Second sister, I'm coming to help. Lin Bai went to third grandpa's house. Third uncle and fourth uncle had borrowed an ox cart and left for Front Field Village. Once Lin Bai confirmed they'd gone, he came back to tell me. Wang and I timed it so the dumplings hit the boiling water at just the right moment. They'd barely started floating when we heard the gate open. Lin Ji walked through the door. My siblings and I couldn't help it. We cried again. But this time, every tear was from happiness. Steaming dumplings were set on the table. Lin Song and Lin Tong clapped and chanted, "Dumplings! Dumplings!" Lin Shuang clapped along with them. Fourth uncle didn't even wait for them to cool. He grabbed one with his bare fingers and stuffed it in his mouth, puffing and gasping from the heat. Everyone laughed. Lin Ji laughed too, and then the tears came again. Third grandpa picked up a dumpling with his chopsticks and placed it in her bowl. You're home now. Let everything that happened before stay in the past. The good days are all ahead of you. Lin Ji wiped her eyes and nodded hard. I boiled a big pot of water in the kitchen. Lin Ji wiped herself down, washed her hair, and changed into her new clothes. She threw the old ones straight into the fire. Then she turned around and hugged me, crying. I stroked her hair and let her cry. Words wouldn't help right now. Time would. Before bed, Lin Ji showed me the separation papers. Third grandpa had gone with third uncle and fourth uncle to the village chief's house and had the chief's educated youngest son write up the document. When they went to pick up Lin Ji, fourth uncle had to physically hold Feng Sen down to make him press his thumbprint. I said it was all thanks to third grandpa. I'd honestly forgotten about getting the official papers done. Lin Ji asked about the family split and where the one tael came from. Lin Song jumped in before anyone else and told her everything, the space, the chili oil, all of it. Lin Ji is an honest person at heart. Something this unbelievable was hard for her to accept all at once. Lin Song watched her stunned expression, sighed like a little old man and said, Big sister, I understand. When I first heard it from second sister, I looked exactly the same. Give it time. Lin Bai and I couldn't help laughing. Lin Ji secretly pinched herself. It hurt, so she wasn't dreaming. Our family was finally together. Lin Song and Lin Tong were so excited they couldn't sleep. They ran in circles on the bed until they wore themselves out. In the middle of the night, Lin Ji startled awake. She reached over and touched me and Lin Tong beside her, then settled back to sleep. Come morning, Lin Ji was still sleeping. Lin Song and Lin Tong were quiet enough not to wake her and slipped out to the front room. I fried the leftover dumplings in oil until they were golden and crispy, cooked millet porridge, and set out some of the pickled vegetables Wang had brought. When Lin Ji woke and saw the table full of food, she said to herself that life here really was getting better. Right after breakfast, Wang came with Lin Shuang to help finish the clothes. With Lin Ji joining in, she knows how to sew. The three of them worked even faster. Lin Shuang is only 12, but she's not spoiled at all. She can cook, sew, and does it all cheerfully. She called me and Lin Ji big sister and second sister so sweetly I couldn't help but like her. Third aunt, you and Shuang should stay for lunch, and call third grandpa and the uncles over too. Wang looked up and scratched her head with her needle. Eating here is fine, but just porridge and pickled vegetables. And don't bother calling your third grandpa. He went to town with your uncles. At noon I steamed rough rice, made radish soup, and sent Lin Bai to buy 10 eggs. I made a big bowl of steamed egg custard. Wang felt a little embarrassed eating so well. She said third grandpa would scold her if he knew. I told her to treat this like her own home. Nobody gets scolded for eating at their own house. Despite what I said, after that day neither she nor Lin Shuang would stay for meals no matter how much Lin Ji and I insisted. The padded clothes took 2 days. Then we made 5 single-person quilts. We were low on cotton, so they came out thin, but layered over what we already had, they'd be warm enough. With the last scraps of cotton, we each got a hat. When Wang and Lin Shuang left, I gave them a strip of pork ribs. Not that I was being stingy, I just didn't dare give more, or they wouldn't accept it. Even so, Wang pushed it back and forth before finally taking it. Third Grandpa showed up shortly after. He told me to save our food for ourselves and to save every coin we could. There'd be plenty of things needing money in the future. He lectured me for a good while before leaving. He'd barely taken a few steps past our gate when he got a feeling someone was following him. He looked back several times but saw nothing. Probably his imagination. These days Lin Song and Lin Tong were the happiest of all. Hats, new clothes, new shoes from Mrs. Zhang. Running around playing every day. But no matter what, they always came home at night with a full basket of firewood. Lin Bai spent his free time in the kitchen weaving baskets. He'd made over 20. I took them into the space and got everything organized. The dried chilies were the biggest pile. Those didn't need baskets. I picked out all the wild chives and packed them separately into 2 baskets, about 10 bundles each. Before the new year I'd sell them in town at 20 coins a bundle. The other wild greens filled 5 baskets, 10 bundles each. Also 20 coins a bundle. I'd only picked mushrooms I recognized, about 2 jin total. Not worth selling. I'd save those for our New Year meals. The hawthorn fruits weren't many either. Next trip to town I'd buy some malt sugar and cook them together as a treat. Next year I needed to get into the mountains earlier and stockpile more. Winter sales would bring in good money. Lastly, I organized the pork into baskets. Cuts in one, head and trotters in another, innards in a third. It had been days since we'd been up the mountain, so I called Lin Ji and Lin Bai to come check the traps. The 2 little ones had run themselves ragged playing and waved us off, too tired, too thirsty. Lin Ji had never been up the mountain before. She was nervous the whole way. Are you sure it's safe going up just like this? We're about the same height. I put my arm around her shoulder. Big sister, don't worry. I can protect you. She almost laughed at that, but it calmed her nerves. We checked the traps one by one. The first few had their grass covers messed up from the rain. Lin Bai fixed them. Then we came to the newer, larger pits he'd dug last time. At the biggest one, the cover was completely gone. We hurried over and looked down. 2 wild boars, one big, one small, lay at the bottom. We hadn't been up in days, so who knew how long they'd been dead. But after that last rainstorm, the weather had turned truly cold, cold enough to see your breath. The meat should still be fine. The 3 of us hauled both boars out. I put them in the space. Lin Ji watched them vanish and finally, truly believed. Lin Bai reset the traps, and we headed down. Second sister, we just saved a fortune on buying pork for oil. I was thrilled too. Those weren't wild boars. They were bags of jingling copper coins. Exactly. If we had to buy pork every time, the chili oil profits would shrink to nothing. Lin Ji picked up a branch and tossed it in her basket. We should be careful with money from now on. Lin Bai will need to find a wife in 2 or 3 years. There'll be plenty of expenses. Lin Bai's ears turned red, and he looked away. I glanced at him and smiled. Don't worry, big sister. By the time Lin Bai is ready for matchmaking, money will be the last thing we worry about. We'll be wondering how to spend it all. Lin Ji pinched my nose. Big talk from a little girl. At the bottom of the mountain we headed straight home. As we got close we heard crying, and it sounded like Lin Tong. We broke into a run. Terrified something had happened to the boys. At the gate, Lin Tong was sitting on the ground in the yard wailing at the top of his lungs. His new jacket was ripped open, cotton poking out through the tear. The kitchen door, the side room door, the main room door, all thrown wide open. The whole yard was a mess. Lin Ji picked up Lin Tong. Seeing his big sister made him cry even harder. He pointed toward the main room, where Grandma's sharp, nasty voice was coming from. I sent Lin Bai to fetch the village chief, and went inside with Lin Ji. Lin Song, tell me where your family hides its money. Where did it all come from? Answer me. When an elder asks you a question, you'd better speak. In the bedroom, Grandma had her hand raised to hit Lin Song. But that boy stood there with his neck stiff, defiance all over his face. "What do you think you're doing?" I pulled Lin Song behind me and shoved Grandma. She stumbled back. First, Aunt Chin was standing right behind her and didn't even try to catch her. You pushed me. You ungrateful brats. I'll report you to the authorities." I checked Lin Song over. A few rips in his new jacket, but he was fine. "Go ahead and report us. I'd love to see what the magistrate does to someone who broke into another family's home to steal money." That shook her. She'd planned to intimidate us, but I'd turned it right around. "I'm your own grandmother. How is this breaking in or stealing?" I laughed coldly. "You're our grandmother in name only. We've been separated by contract. The one you had Lin Feng write in black and white. Playing dumb doesn't work on me." When she saw she couldn't control me with filial duty, she dropped the act. "Then tell me, how did Lin Ji come back? How much did you pay Feng San?" "Buying ribs, buying eggs. Where is this money coming from?" She looked Lin Ji and me up and down in our new padded jackets. "New clothes for the whole family. That cotton alone must have cost a fortune. Tell you what, I won't even ask for money. Just make one new outfit each for me, your grandpa, and your aunt, and buy us half a pig for the new year. Call it your holiday gift." I'd never met anyone this shameless. Arguing with her was pointless. She'd twist everything. "I'm done wasting words. The village chief is coming. He can decide." The moment she heard village chief, she tried to leave with Chun. But there was no way I was letting her wreck our home and walk away. Lin Ji and I blocked the door together. Grandma turned on Lin Ji, thinking she'd be easier. "You're the eldest. Your sister has no sense, but are you going to act like this too? Don't you respect your own grandmother?" Lin Ji held Lin Tong and turned her face away. Looking at Grandma reminded her of Feng San. It made her sick. "You don't deserve that title." Grandma's jaw dropped. Chen leaned in behind her and whispered, "The village chief is here." Grandma threw herself on the ground, slapping her thighs, wailing at the top of her lungs. "How cruel. I raised you all from babies, and now you've turned on me." Village chief Li Yukai arrived, and he'd brought Grandpa along. Lin Bai had explained everything on the way, and Grandpa was grinding his teeth with fury. Here's what had actually happened. Days ago, Grandma heard that Lin Bai spent 20 coins on eggs. She figured that was from selling the chickens. Then Feng Sin showed up, and after she sent him to our house, she didn't leave. She hid and eavesdropped. She heard everything about the one tael of silver. She hadn't expected us to be close with third grandpa's family. She assumed we'd borrowed the money from them. After that, she started lurking outside our gate. That's when she saw me give Wang a strip of ribs. She reported back to Grandpa and got suspicious. Today she waited until Lin Ji, Lin Bai, and I went up the mountain, then came to squeeze information out of the two little ones. She hadn't planned on hitting anyone, but Lin Tong couldn't talk clearly, and Lin Song refused to say a word. She lost her temper, started tearing through the house looking for money, finders keepers, but we got home sooner than she expected. "Village chief, you have to help me. These ungrateful grandchildren are bullying me." I pulled out the separation contract, the house deed, and the land deed, and handed them to the chief. "Village chief, we 5 siblings formally separated from their household. Not just separated. My grandmother cut family ties with us. Rich or poor, weddings or funerals, nothing to do with each other. Now that we're barely getting by using a skill our mother left us, our grandmother can't stand it." I'd called the chief for exactly this reason, to shut Grandma down for good. She couldn't keep showing up with her elder status and making trouble whenever she pleased. And this way, the fact that I earned money from chili oil was now public knowledge with a legitimate explanation. The second Grandma heard the word skill, her eyes went wide. "So you had a money-making skill even before the split? Then we're entitled to a share." I didn't bother responding. I'd said my piece to the chief. He could judge. Li Yukai looked around our yard and rooms, ransacked worse than a burglar would have done. Then he looked at Grandma rolling on the ground, throwing a tantrum. The truth was obvious. "Listen here, Mrs. Lin. Do you hear yourself? You think I don't know what your family's done? Your second son died, and you took 10 taels. You sold a good girl like Lin Ji for 8 taels. What kind of grandparents do that? Put those crooked thoughts away. You live your life, they live theirs. I'm standing witness right here today. He turned to Grandpa, his expression complicated. Brother Lin, let me give you some advice. Don't forget your Lin Feng still needs to pass the imperial exams. Don't ruin the boy's chances. By now a crowd had gathered at our gate. Grandpa's face was burning with shame. You disgraceful woman. Get home. Now. Grandma was scared when Grandpa raised his voice. She turned to find Chen for support, but Chen had vanished, slipped away without anyone noticing. She got up by herself, brushed the dirt off, and followed Grandpa toward the gate. Wait, they stopped. Village chief, if someone barged into your home, tore the place apart, and tried to walk away like nothing happened, would you let them? The chief studied me. The girl who used to be too timid to speak above a whisper.
Quite the change.
Fair point. What do you want? 20 copper coins for damages. Otherwise, I'm filing a complaint with the magistrate, trespassing and attempted theft. And I won't clean up a thing until the officials come to inspect the scene. Grandpa kicked Grandma hard. You fool. Pay them. My real goal wasn't the money. It was the lesson. For Grandma, parting with 20 coins was like losing a limb. That sting would keep her away for a good while. The day after Grandma's break-in, Wang came over with news. She'd heard from the village gossip that Grandma went home and screamed at first Aunt Chen for abandoning her. But Chen is the sneaky quiet type. She just ignored the scolding and went about her business like she was deaf. First uncle is useless, always doing whatever his wife says. Grandpa was still furious, and Grandma was so worked up with anger that she got a fever that night. First uncle had to go all the way to town for a doctor. Wang told the story with gusto. Lin Ji and I listened with satisfaction. Grandma brought it all on herself. Wang mainly came to check if we needed help cleaning up. When she saw we'd already handled it, she went home. After she left, I pulled the wild boars out of my space and had Lin Bai get to work butchering. This time he separated everything properly, fat for rendering oil, lean cut into small pieces, so we could eat some every day. He singed the hair off the pig heads and trotters and cleaned the innards for New Year. I set aside all the pig skin, including from the first boar. My plan was to cook it into meat jelly to sell before the New Year. Wild boar skin is dark brown, so the jelly wouldn't look as pretty, but it would taste just as good. Pigskin is cheaper than pork, and most people with a few coins would rather buy meat. But sold cheap, someone who loves the texture would buy it. When chili oil delivery day came, Linji went with me. We ate wild greens stir-fried with pork cracklings and steamed rough rice, then each carried a jar of 5 jin and headed out. At the gate we ran into Mrs. Zhang and Zhang Shan, also heading to town. Mrs. Zhang had heard about Linji from the day Grandma came causing trouble. She couldn't help staring. Linji is timid by nature, but she's smart enough to know this is her second chance. She straightened her back, met Mrs. Zhang's gaze openly, and even smiled. Mrs. Zhang was the one who looked away, embarrassed. On the ox cart, Mrs. Zhang squeezed in next to us. The chili oil's aroma hit her nose immediately. She recognized it. This was the mystery smell from her dream that night, and the same scent she'd caught drifting from our kitchen once before. What's in those jars, little sister? It smells incredible. The whole cart turned to look. Everyone could smell it. I opened the cloth, wrapping on one jar, and let her peek. It's a seasoning oil. Just a drop in any dish or soup makes everything taste better. An older woman sitting behind me couldn't hold back. That really does smell amazing. How much for Jean? Second Miss Lin. I covered the jar back up. 200 coins a Jean. The woman went silent. Way too expensive. Mrs. Zhang didn't ask anything more either. The cart rode in quiet the rest of the way. In town, Mrs. Zhang took Zhang Shan to find her husband. Lin Ji and I headed for the market. Lu Da's noodle shop was booming even more than before. He'd gone ahead and taken over the tea house across the street. Customers could wait there and drink tea for free while they queued. Smart businessman, generous with his moves. 10 jin of chili oil came to 1 tael 500 coins, plus the 5 taels he still owed from last time. 6 taels, 500 coins total. Lu Da was busy in the kitchen, so Lu Er handled the payment. Outside the shop, I told Lin Ji I wanted to buy Lin Shuang a pretty hairpin. We hadn't gone 3 steps when someone called out behind us. "Excuse me, ladies. Please wait." A middle-aged man hurried over. Before I could even ask, he explained himself. "I'm the manager of Shen Lu restaurant here in town. My name is Shen. I'd like to buy the red oil you sell to this noodle shop." A straightforward man, I could appreciate that. But I had to disappoint him. "Manager Shen, I'm guessing you saw us carry the jars into the noodle shop. But I'm afraid I have an agreement with Brother Lu. In this town, I sell only to him." He called it red oil, which told me everything. He tasted the noodles, figured out the secret was in those red drops floating on the broth, but couldn't ask Lu directly. So he'd been staking out the shop, waiting for the supplier to show up. And that's exactly what had happened. Shen Lu was one of the top restaurants in town. About 2 weeks ago, business had started dropping noticeably, the first time in years. He investigated and discovered a tiny noodle shop was stealing his customers. Rich young men were sending their servants to line up at dawn. Some came back every single day. He'd gone to eat there himself. The flavor was extraordinary, and after eating it, everything else tasted like chewing wax, flat, bland, no kick at all. After 2 days of eating there, he figured out the magic was in those tiny red dots of oil floating on the soup. He'd asked around and learned the Lu brothers had been running the shop for 2 years without much notice. It only exploded recently. Being a restaurant man himself, he knew that meant the red oil wasn't their own creation. Someone was supplying it. He spent several days drinking free tea at Lu Da's courtesy tea house across the street until he spotted us. 2 girls in patchwork clothes carrying clay jars into the shop, getting warmly received and paid in copper coins. He followed us out. He just hadn't expected an exclusivity deal. I took Linji's arm and walked away, leaving manager Shen standing there in the cold wind. We went shopping. A pair of red flower hairpins for Lin Shuang, 10 coins. 20 coins of malt candy. 20 jean of coarse flour, 160 coins. I asked Linji if she wanted anything, or if there was something she'd been craving. She couldn't think of anything. She said all she used to dream about was eating her fill. Now that I was earning real money and she got to eat every day, she was already more than content. I told her she had to pick something. She spotted a sugar-coated hawthorn stick seller on the street and said she wanted one of those. I bought 7, 1 each for all of us, plus 2 for Wang and Lin Shuang when we stopped by their house. 21 coins. Lin Song and Lin Tong had been begging for hot and sour cabbage ever since the first time, so I bought 2 more cabbages, 20 coins. Nothing else to buy. We headed for the ox cart home. I'd barely sat down on the cart when I heard Manager Shen's voice again behind us. "Ladies, please wait." Manager Shen had walked away slowly after I turned him down, heading back toward Lu Da's noodle shop. He stood there staring at the 2 storefronts, and then it hit him. If Lu Da could expand from 1 shop to 2, why couldn't he open a branch in another town? He caught up to us just as we were about to leave and pitched the idea. I thought it over and nodded. "That works, as long as it's not here in Qingyuan town."
But the same rules apply.
"Whatever town or county you open in, I'll sell exclusively to you there, but you'll need to pay for that, right?" He asked how much. "It depends on the size. For a small shop like Brother Lu's, 20 taels. For a restaurant the size of Shen Lu, at least 100 taels. The oil itself is the same price, 150 coins a jean." He understood. He said he'd spend the next few days scouting locations in other towns and counties, and we discussed the details when I came back to deliver Lu Da's next batch. Lin Ji and I took the ox cart home. We stopped at Third Grandpa's house first. Only Wang and Lin Shuang were there. Third Grandpa and the uncles were all working in town for the day. Lin Shuang had never owned a hair ornament in her life. When I handed her the red flower pins, she held them carefully, turning them over and over in her hands. "Thank you, big sister, second sister. I love them so much. If you love them, why aren't you wearing them? Let me put them in for you." I could tell she wanted to save them. If I didn't pin them in her hair right now, they'd go straight to the bottom of a chest and never come out. "Don't be afraid to wear them. At New Year, big sister, and I will buy you new ones." Wang was happy seeing Lin Shuang with 2 older sisters looking after her. "Don't buy more. This pair will last years. Stop wasting money." Knowing she'd lecture us about spending, Lin Ji and I waited until we were leaving to pull the sugar-coated hawthorn sticks out of the basket. At home, Lin Bai and Lin Song already had dinner ready. But something was off. Lin Bai's face was dark and he wouldn't speak. Lin Song kept sneaking glances at him, then at Lin Ji and me. I could tell something had happened while we were gone. Did Grandma come again this morning? That was my first guess. No, Lin Bai's voice was flat. Lin Song had been dying for one of us to ask. If nobody had, he would have burst. She didn't come, but the carpenter Chui's wife did. Lin Ji and I looked at each other. We have zero connection to the Chui family. Why would she come here? Though I did know their family had a daughter, 17 or 18, not quite right in the head, and they'd been trying to find a live-in son-in-law to take care of them in old age. Wait, surely not. Lin Bai slammed his chopsticks on the table. They're outrageous. She wanted me to marry into their family, as a live-in husband. When I said no, she said with how poor our family is, getting picked by them should make us feel like our ancestors are smiling from their graves. I was so angry, I kicked her out. Lin Ji set down her bowl, frowning. That girl is 17 or 18 and Lin Bai is 12. What are they thinking? Lin Bai looked at her silently. The age gap wasn't really the point. Lin Song added that Mrs. Chui had said Lin Bai's opinion didn't count. She was coming back to talk to us directly. Sure enough, that evening while the five of us were each enjoying a sugar-coated hawthorn stick, Mrs. Chui showed up again. I sent Lin Bai and the little ones to the back room. Lin Ji and I would handle this. Mrs. Chui, Lin Bai isn't old enough for matchmaking. What made you think of our family? Lin Ji asked pointedly. Normally nobody would consider a 12-year-old boy. I ran into your grandmother yesterday. She told me your family desperately needs money, and that if I came asking, you'd definitely agree. Listen, if Lin Bai comes to our house, we'll treat him like our own son. And we won't let your family lose out. I'm willing to give 2 taels of silver. After that, the moment Lin Ji and I heard your grandmother, we knew. That old witch. She knew perfectly well this wouldn't work. She just wanted to humiliate us. I cut Mrs. Chui off mid-sentence. Mrs. Chui, I'm afraid our grandmother played you. Our mother left us a trade skill. We're not short on money. And just a few days ago, Grandma broke into our house and caused such a scene that the village chief had to come settle it. She had to pay us 20 coins in damages, and she's still bitter about it. She sent you here to stir up trouble, Mrs. Chui's eyes landed on the sugar-coated hawthorn sticks on the table. This didn't look like a family desperate for money. That old woman had used her as a pawn. Mrs. Chui is not someone who takes being made a fool of lightly. She stood up and stormed out. I pulled Lin Song's hat down snug and told him to follow her and watch. He grabbed his hawthorn stick and trotted off happily. He came back about half an hour later, barely able to talk through his laughter. You should have seen it. Mrs. Chui stood outside Grandpa's gate cursing so loud the whole village could hear. Grandma didn't dare come out. Grandpa was at the door bowing and apologizing over and over. And then Mrs. Chui still wasn't satisfied. She went home, got a bucket of outhouse water, and threw the whole thing on their front gate. Lin Song was laughing so hard he said his stomach hurt. He acted out the whole scene while howling. Lin Bai's anger melted away, and he started laughing too. Lin Ji and I looked at each other, and both instinctively held our breath. The smell at that front gate must have been something else. Next day, Wang came by with the update. Grandma was sick again. First uncle's eldest son Lin Nan was about to get married, and now their front gate had been doused in outhouse water. How unlucky was that? First Aunt Chen got in first uncle's ear and sent him to Grandpa's room to stir things up. Grandpa thought it over and slapped Grandma hard across the face. This came from the neighbor, Annie's son's family next door. She said the slap was so loud she heard it through the wall. Whether that part was true or not, one thing was clear. Chen was now in charge of planning Lin Nan's wedding. The whole village was saying Grandma had lost her mind. Perfectly good life, and she spent all her time making trouble. Zhang Shan kept coming over to play with Lin Song and Lin Tong, so I chatted with Mrs. Zhang whenever I saw her. She told me she was thinking about sending Zhang Shan to school but couldn't make up her mind. If he turned out to be a scholar, she'd have done right. But if he didn't take to studying, it'd be a waste of money. That night, lying on the warm bed, I asked Lin Bai and Lin Song if they wanted to go to school. Lin Bai said no. He was past the age for starting, and besides, the family needed him. Lin Song was the right age, but he wanted no part of it. He said he'd seen Lin Feng's textbooks once, and they made him sleepy, just looking at them. As for Lin Tong, I didn't need to ask. Whether he wanted to or not, in 2 years when he turned 6, he was going. The cold was getting brutal. The water in the kitchen vat had a crust of ice on it. I warmed my hands by the stove while Lin Ji washed the millet and put it on to cook. Winter is so hard to get through. My hands are too frozen to even stretch out. Big sister, if we built a new house, what would you want it to look like? She poured the millet into the pot. I'm already happy with what we have. Just watching you all grow up and start families someday. That's enough for me. That's a long way off. This house is too old. It leaked in several places last time it rained. Third grandpa said if we get heavy snow, we have to move out. I put together a cold dish while we talked: sliced cabbage with salt, soy sauce, vinegar, scallions, crushed garlic, and 1 drop of chili oil. Perfect alongside hot porridge. If the deal with Manager Shin goes through, that's at least 20 taels. Instead of just patching the roof, we should tear the whole thing down and build new. Linji thought it was a lot of money to spend, but she knew the income was because of me, so the decisions should be mine too. All right, whatever you say. Lin Bai slept in a little, then swept the yard and went to the river for water. His hands were nearly numb when he came back. He sat there holding his porridge bowl for a long time before he could feel his fingers again. The river's starting to freeze over. Lucky someone had already broken the ice before I got there. Hearing him talk about ice gave me an idea. If I froze a bunch of ice this winter and stored it in my space, where time stands still, I could sell it to wealthy families in the summer.
Pure profit.
I'd need to buy more wooden buckets next time I was in town. After breakfast, Lin Ji and I realized we needed to make gloves for Lin Bai before his hands cracked open with frostbite. But we'd used up all the cotton. We looked at each other, then at Lin Tong's sleeping mat. He's small. He doesn't use the whole length. We cut it open at the bottom and pulled out enough cotton for 3 pairs of gloves, 1 for Lin Bai, 1 each for Lin Song, and Lin Tong since they gather firewood every day. Lin Ji had all 3 pairs finished by noon. The 2 little ones put theirs on and ran straight out the door. Lin Song stopped and turned around. What's for lunch? I knew that look. The boy was craving something. What do you want? Noodles. The ones you made last time were so good. I pinched his cheek, which was noticeably chubbier now.
Fine.
Don't go far. Food will be ready soon. Lin Ji went to knead dough. I wanted to make hot mushroom noodle soup. On a day this cold, a bowl of rich broth sounded like heaven. We were out of eggs, so I sent Lin Bai to buy 20. Everyone would get a fried egg on top. Lin Song came back from showing off his gloves and found it wasn't the same chive and egg noodles as before. He didn't mind. He trusted it would be good. 1 slurp, and he was hunched over his bowl, not looking up until the last drop of soup was gone. All 5 of us finished our bowls completely clean. Lin Song volunteered to clear the table and wash dishes. Lin Tong happily trotted behind him, trying to help. That afternoon, Lin Ji, Lin Bai, and I went up the mountain. The traps were all empty, but we found 2 wild pheasants that had frozen to death on the ground. I decided to keep those for New Year instead of selling. Before long, it was delivery day again. Lin Ji and I went to town. After dropping off Lu Da's oil and stepping outside the noodle shop, Manager Shin was already waiting. He bought a storefront in neighboring Qingqiao Tan and invited us to Shinlu to discuss the deal in detail. Shinlu sat in a clever location, not the busiest part of town, but the closest to where all the wealthy families lived. 3 stories tall. Ground floor for regular seating, 2nd and 3rd floors all private dining rooms. Lin Ji and I followed him inside. The waiter stared at us in disbelief. These patchwork-clothed girls were the honored guests the boss had been talking about. He'd prepared a private room on the 3rd floor with the restaurant's finest pastries and good tea. Then he brought out a floor plan of his new Qingqiao town location. I looked it over. 4 small shops knocked into one. Not a second Shinlu, just a solid mid-size restaurant. Manager Shin, for this storefront the fee is 50 taels. He nodded and called someone in with paper and ink to draft a proper contract. I thought to myself that this was how big business was done. Luda and I had never even thought to put things in writing. I needed to be more careful going forward. The contract was written up. Exclusive chili oil supply in Qingqiao town to manager, Shen only. Both parties pressed their thumbprints and kept a copy each. He gave me the delivery address. First shipment in 5 days, 20 Jin. After that, every 10 days, same as Luda. Since Qingqiao was farther, I said Lin Bai would handle those deliveries. Manager Shen paid the full 50 taels right there, all in small silver pieces, which he said would be easier for us to spend. He asked where we lived, offering his private horse carriage to take us home safely with that much money. I told him we were in Backfield Village. Good for him to know in case of emergencies. But I said we still had errands to run and thanked him for the offer. As we were leaving, he called us back and had the pastries wrapped in oiled paper for us to take home. Lin Ji and I found a quiet spot, and I stored the silver in my space. Then we went shopping. I bought buckets, 2 sizes, the regular water hauling kind, and smaller ones about half that size. 4 of each. 100 coins exactly. There's not much produce in a northern winter besides cabbage and radishes. The green vegetables in my space were too precious to eat yet, so I spent another 100 coins stocking up on cabbage and radishes. Lin Ji hadn't said a word the whole way. She was still processing those 50 taels. Is that money really ours? I laughed and made a pinching gesture at her. You want me to pinch you like I did Lin Bai? I linked my arm through hers. Big sister. Our life is only going to get better. We'll build a big house. A kitchen where your hands don't freeze. And an outhouse where your butt doesn't freeze either. She burst out laughing. A warm outhouse? You really do dream big. Miss, excuse me ladies, the voice sounded familiar. I turned around. We were passing the fabric shop where I'd bought the ruined cloth. The shop boy was calling out to us from the doorway. I told Lin Ji this was the fabric shop where I'd gotten the ruined cloth and cheap cotton last time. I asked the shop boy to save anything they were throwing out or selling cheap. If they've got more cloth, we could each make another set of clothes to rotate. I wasn't being stingy about buying nice fabric. I just wanted to save up and get the house built first. Got more unwanted cloth and cheap cotton? I called out. The boy waved his hand and laughed. I do, but not as cheap as last time. 15 coins a jean for cotton. There's not another deal like that in the whole kingdom. He explained that the owner was clearing old stock to make room for new inventory. Some bolts of rough cloth had been sitting so long the color had faded, and some cotton had yellowed. But most of it was perfectly fine. 40 coins a bolt for cloth, 80 coins a jean for cotton. The boss had just given the word today, and the boy thought of me right away. If I didn't come by tomorrow, it would all sell out in no time, once they put on display. I thanked him and asked how many bolts there were.
About 20, he said.
I took 10, enough for clothes including summer wear, plus 10 jean of cotton. 1 tael, 200 coins total. Today I deliberately didn't put the goods into my space. Our family kept adding things, and at some point people needed to see it happening normally. I had the boy help load everything onto the ox cart and gave him 30 coins. That was a full day's wages for him, so he was thrilled. He promised to hold any future bargains for me. The cloth and cotton took up space on the cart, so I paid 2 extra coins for the load. The ox cart dropped us at the village entrance and left. 10 bolts of cloth and 10 jean of cotton. Lin Ji and I couldn't carry it all ourselves. I left her watching the pile and ran home with the cotton. Lin Bai and Lin Song were both home, so they came with me. The 3 older ones carried the cloth while the 2 little ones ran circles around us, shouting about getting new clothes. Right in front of Grandpa's house, we ran into First Aunt Chen seeing a matchmaker off. She spotted us carrying all that fabric, and her eyes nearly popped out of her head. I looked her way, and she slammed the gate shut. Lin Ji caught up, looking worried. First Aunt saw us. I wasn't the least bit concerned. Let her look. The better we live, the angrier they get. Let them choke on it. Lin Bai was fired up. Back when we lived there, new clothes always went to Lin Nan and Lin Feng first. We wore their hand-me-downs and had to be grateful for it. New clothes for New Year, he yelled out loud as we passed the gate. Behind the door, Chen was stomping her feet. First uncle asked what was wrong, and she dragged him inside to rant. At home we ate dinner, and I told Lin Bai about the deal with manager Shin. We discussed the Qingqiao town deliveries. Lin Bai said he could handle them alone. Lin Ji and I both disagreed. Qingqiao wasn't far, but a round trip took a whole day. Lin Bai was only going to turn 13 after New Year, still a child. If something happened on the road, he couldn't handle it. After thinking it over, I thought of fourth uncle. His work in town was a regular day labor, 30 coins at most. If he went with Lin Bai, I'd pay him 40 coins per trip. Better to keep the money in the family than pay a stranger. For the cart, I'd borrow the village chief's ox cart. His family rents it out whenever it's not needed for farming. We'd buy our own ox eventually, but our little yard had nowhere to keep one. That would have to wait for the new house. That evening Lin Ji and I steamed 2 big batches of wild boar and cabbage buns. 1 batch for us, 1 to bring to third grandpa's family. We knocked on their gate just as the 3 men were coming back from town. They'd walked both ways to save money. Third grandpa answered us with a tired, weak smile. Fourth uncle spotted Lin Ji's covered basket right away. What's in that basket? Still warm, right? Lin Ji nodded, smiling. I love fourth uncle's directness. No fuss, no pretending. Fourth uncle, you're unbelievable. You guessed it, buns we just steamed. Wang came to open the gate. Fourth uncle nudged third grandpa, and third uncle forward. Move, move. I want to eat my niece's buns. Wang welcomed us inside. Lin Shuang brought water for the men to wash up. The table had porridge and pickled vegetables. Lin Ji handed the basket to Wang. Third aunt, please eat while they're hot. Wang took them to the kitchen and plated them. She and Lin Shuang split 1 bun between them. Not because they were full, but to save the rest for the men to take to town for lunch tomorrow. Third grandpa had gotten visibly thinner these past few days. I'd told him to stop, but he insisted he needed to save up because next year there'd be plenty of expenses. Lin Ji and I chatted with Wang, waiting until the men had nearly finished eating. But I needed to know something first. How long would their current job last? If I told third grandpa my plan first, he'd insist on helping for free and might quit steady work for my 3-day-a-month job. 2 more days at most. This is the shop owner's last shipment before the new year. Good. Then I laid out the plan, fourth uncle going with Lin Bai on the Qingqiao town deliveries, 40 coins per trip. Knowing third grandpa would refuse the money, I cut him off before he could. Third grandpa, if I don't ask fourth uncle, I'll just hire someone else. Better the money stays in our family. Besides, I might have more work for third uncle and fourth uncle down the road. The old saying goes, even real brothers settle accounts clearly. Let's agree right now, work means pay. That actually got third grandpa to laugh. He shook his head, probably thinking again about how his older brother and sister-in-law threw away a treasure.
Fine, fine.
Grandpa will listen to you. When he heard about borrowing the village chief's ox cart, he told me not to worry about it. Once his current job wrapped up in 2 days, he'd go talk to the chief himself. Everything's settled. I didn't stay long. I asked Wang and Lin Shuang to come over tomorrow to help with the clothes. Wang agreed right away. The next morning, after third grandpa and the uncles left for town, she and Lin Shuang came over. I brought out the pastries from manager Shin. In all the talking yesterday, I'd completely forgotten about them. Everyone had a taste. We'd barely taken 2 bites when someone knocked on the gate. I told them to keep eating and went to answer. I opened the door. Standing there was Grandpa.